Bye. Couple songs together and make a little playlist of cute songs that I can do. Okay. Oh, why are you dying? I charged you so long. Did it not charge? Oh, I'm very upset if this didn't charge. I don't want to be upset. No, you're kidding. I've charged it for so long. No. What am I going to do? Oh no, if I don't have a headset, that's really bad. Oh, but it looks like it's flashing red. Oh no. Okay, so the bad news is my phone didn't charge. The good news is my other mic, I can just turn it up, dial up the sensitivity, and this will just be how it is, and I can move the mic a little bit. Why don't we're just gonna have to do that, and I accept that. So I'm gonna be in this room a lot more often until the other thing charges, but that's fine. It's not great, but I can deal. Okay, welcome to my stream. I have to pee. You know what? Ah, man. Okay, I have to pee. And if that's a problem for you, then I mean, give me a break, man. Give me a break. I can't help having a bladder. If I had a choice, I would have done something different, you know what I mean? That's outside of what I can correct for. Other things maybe I can do something about, but the bladder, no. I mean, okay, all right, got that. Merlin's chilling in the sun. He's sunning, if you will. Yeah, you can hear me all right, though, right? Like, as long as you can kind of hear me, we'll just kind of live with what's happening. Thinking. I'm still trying to think. What am I doing? I have to pee. Okay, I have to pee. So let's listen to, just throw on something. I don't know. I know what to do. You can hear me? Okay. As long as you can hear me, I'll project my voice a little bit at times if I get too quiet, but I think we should be good. I want to go this one. Okay. Okay, I have to pee, and then I'll be back. How are you? How are you, Hokey Man? Good to see you. Thank you for coming. It's been wild, but Kyle was in town. He's just left this morning. Well, he just left like an hour ago. So I was also just kind of recovering from just pandemic-y stuff, and then getting to spend a little time doing quality time, you know. And also we worked on some like other lifey skill type stuff, so it was productive. Kind of felt like I was getting myself back into a groove before taking on these sorts of goals around like the peer support and yeah, the next phase of that. Okay. Peeing. Yes, right, peeing. What is this Christmas? I thought this was supposed to be spring. That's not spring at all. Here we go. Weird. Yeah, you're still going through your health issues. I feel that. I give you heart. I send you heart. Nope, I don't know how to do that. Oh, I have to be signed in. Oh. Okay, hold on a second. I didn't realize I wasn't signed in. Whoa. Next. Oh, Lord. Yeah, I'm also dealing with health stuff too. Mine is fluctuating in and out a bit. How are things going in terms of getting some breaks from it or anything? Anything there? Hold on a second. Let me figure this out. Oh boy. Sorry, this is, and I still have to pee, but I'm like, oh, I have to sign in to be able to chat in the chat, which seems like I should do just in case I want to drop a little message or something or a link. That's weird that it didn't automatically connect. Now I have to remember what the hell my password is. Is it that? Ah, fuck. Well, I'm not gonna be able to do that. Okay. Shit. Damn. Can I cancel this? Damn. You know what I need to do? Okay, hold on. I still have to pee. That's the sad part about this, you know? This is tragic. Yeah, if you wanted to chat a little bit about the health issue management navigation, I think that's just going to be another part of the quality of life thing that needs to get worked out and ironed out. It's like, how does an autistic person deal with the healthcare system when we have more health concerns and express them differently as well? So I am really down for that discussion anytime you feel like it. Don't feel pressured to do it now, obviously, but that's available to you. That's wide open. Feel free. Okay, let's see. So, what was I doing? Oh, yeah. Okay, I gotta manage this. What am I trying to sign into? A, B, C, D, E, F. Yeah, let's look at that one. And then I really have to pee. Got it. Okay. Next. Wait, what? What do you mean that's wrong? No! That has to be right. What? What? What do you mean it's wrong? Huh? But, what? Huh? Oh, it's the wrong one. Oh, that makes a lot of sense. I put in the wrong name. Haha. Docs, chat. Okay, let me try this again. Okay, let me put in a heart, and then I'll try to send it. Okay, I put in the wrong email. Okay. There we go. Two-step verification. Ah, God damn it. Okay, that's fine. That's fine. It's fine. It's chill. Where's my phone? This is a very slow start, and I understand that, and that's okay. Oh, it's at my Gmail. Oh. Okay, hold on. I'm gonna pee. But I can't because I have to finish this first. The most exciting streamer talking about how she needs to pee. Sent on my phone. Open the Gmail app on my phone. Why is this so confusing? So it's like, go to your Gmail, but not there. Go to it on your phone. I'm like, huh? Huh? No, you didn't. You're lying to me. Wait, what? Okay, resend it. Huh? Did it just not send in time? I'm so confuzzled. I still have to pee. Yes, it's me. Okay. Not now. Man, that was a lot. What just happened? Oh, that's really weird. It signed in weird. Hi, Kyle! I'm gonna try. This is so strange. Chat signed in super weird. I don't think that was how that was supposed to look. Okay, let me get this. View, docs, chat. It went to like a straight up window. Okay, hopefully can I send a heart now? Did it work? Wait, I sent a heart. Oh yeah, okay, cool. Now I'm good. I'm gonna pee now. Hi, I'm gonna piss my pants. Okay, we're back. Okay, I'm back. Hi! Alright, we're starting. Okay, so here's the deal. I need to charge this headphone situation. So there won't be the normal, like, chat area right now. Only because I have to do that. Let me put this away. So then in that case, what should I do? If only people actually would stop making anything. What is this? Let me make this bigger for me. Also, how do I get the chat back here? Oh, that's weird. I had a chat going. One sec. Where is it? Okay. Where is chat? Interesting. No. I have forgotten how to do this, which is a little whack. No. Interesting. Okay, I'll be reading yours in a second. What is this? Caption. Stream. What is this? Stream chat. Okay. out. Properties. Window. Oh, I remember how I was doing it. Is that true? Oh, interesting. Okay. Shoot. I mean, I guess that's fine. No, isn't this it? No, that's something else. Oh. Okay. Well, balls. That's what I was doing, huh? Interesting. I guess that's it for now. And I can move this wherever I want. Okay. I guess that's what I was doing. Okay. If only people actually would stop making anything even remotely involving computers way overcome. Yeah. Whoa. That makes a lot of sense to me. Basically, nature hates to allow us breaks, and goodness forbid we should. It's not good, apparently. Yeah, it's literally scared. Yeah, I'm scared of everything in a many a way, but it's okay. Like, that fear you feel isn't unfounded, but we need to get more safety in our lives through other means. I don't think we have enough safety in our lives, is one little hypothesis I've got going. But I think also that getting to a better spot with it is going to mean changing our skills and tools, because we were given a set that doesn't really help. And especially because, like, I think autism makes those tools and ideas not apply enough, and then we have a huge issue there. I'm gonna sew up this pillowcase. You know what? I'm just gonna sit down and sew up a pillowcase. That's where we're starting. Yeah. So that's the goal for the peer support space right now. You see that crazy mess of stuff on the whiteboard? So I've been working on a concept that I'm very excited about, and it's nothing super brand new. It's a lot of my ideas kind of like evolving through application of some scientific how do I put this? Scientific information, shall we say, that are newer theories that I think would apply better to explaining autism and what we're dealing with, and therefore by explaining it better we can come up with some better strategies and lifestyle things. Okay, I'll be right back. Okay, here we are. Time to do this. Let's sew this up. And then in terms of like cleaning, tidying, etc. and so forth, I have things I really want to put away. I feel like a lot of my Housekeep-a-thon today is just going to be focused on like rehoming some of my objects that currently don't have a home or were misplaced from their home, and I may want to assess if like I can have them have a better home than they currently do. A better station, a better, I don't know, thing that they exist in when not in use. I've been thinking about what was posted in the Discord by Shadow Wolf. I want to address that today at some point, but I'll kind of hold on that for now because I might be able to get a discussion going when my headset charges, which I better make sure it is. Is this working? I think so. Okay. So I'm going to hold off on that. But another thing I'd been thinking about is like the level of complexity, and this is why also, just to tangent really quickly, the level of complexity that we're dealing with, that's why I really want to get that book finally finished. It's been a really weird month in terms of finishing that book. I finished some audiobooks this past month, but barely that. Even honestly, not even that. Being sick, I was told that if you don't exert yourself, you'll recover better. And someone said, like, not even mentally. I was like, oh, okay. So I didn't do much reading during it. I did a little, but not much. So anyways, but getting back to off that tangent, abstraction is probably going to help with this, but the problem that I'm seeing is, like, the level of complexity that we're being exposed to is too much. Not that we shouldn't know what's going on, but more that you can't have that much complexity in that many different directions and it be processed by a human brain. That isn't a thing. And yet we're kind of being stuck in a situation where that seems necessary to try to do. And that's the issue that I have, is like, okay, if you can't do it and you're in a situation where it clearly would be better if you could, then this needs to be changed. This environment needs to be adapted to us better. Yeah. I'm gonna sit. I don't feel like I even have to be on camera right now, but we could at least frame myself a little bit. Hi. Kyle got to see me perform. One of the things I performed, it was a little bit of a weird setup, and I think I needed to, well, I know I needed to practice more before I did it, but the second one was great, and that was last night. So I'm happy about that. Okay, so yeah, I want to see a change in how information is stored, because right now it feels like it's just going everywhere and anywhere, and then you're trying to look for one thing and you're confronted with way too many other things. That's what the internet is doing currently, and that's not good. So that's kind of an open question for me. And then with the new system, or I guess I should say the new iteration of the system that I am developing for quality of life, stability, and improvement for autistic people, that's got to be factored in. Like, how do we, well, this came up in my therapy session, but like, it is a specific problem I think autistics are really having a tough time with, where we want to see an object as a discrete thing as much as possible, and then we put the context into a nesting sort of relationship. So it's like, okay, if I know, like, this is a needle, right? And I can think about all the features that the needle has, but I also could have the needle be part of another thing, like a meta thing that it's also nested inside of, and then it becomes a feature of the meta thing, and that could be something abstract like hand stitching or something. The needles are a feature of hand stitching, as opposed to a needle's features being my focal point, which would be like, you know, so many centimeters in length, made out of this material, about this sharp, able to penetrate through these sorts of fabrics or density. Yeah. Because I don't even think it's being framed properly, this problem. I've heard people sort of talk about aspects of it, and even some in ways I'm sure that get more sophisticated and maybe are talking the way that I'd like to have this or hear this talked about. But kind of this idea that, like, oh, we're getting distracted. I'm like, I don't know if that's a good way to describe what's happening. It feels like it got started out by saying that people are easily distracted or their attention span is yada yada yada. I'm like, maybe so, but there's this other thing that I'm really interested in that could get lumped in, if that even is a valid thing to say, that people are just distracted, and where you, as a person trying to navigate the internet, get bombarded by extremely large and complex objects. Hello! Kyle just left. We'll get on the next one. It was kind of tight time-wise because Kyle was helping me so much with learning how to drive too. So that kind of threw a little wrench in it. So that's what happened there. But next time, there'll be more times, and eventually, it won't just be visits anymore. It'll work out someday. Good to see you. I'm too far from the mic. Wait, hold on. But you can kind of hear me, right? I can be right here. Sorry. Also, I think I can turn the mic up. Hold on. Oh no, yeah, you're okay. You're totally chill. I think I need to do settings or something. Oh, am I on the USB camera one? I hope not. Oh, no, I'm on this, right? Yeah. Advanced sound options. I thought I could take this louder. Maybe not. Device properties, maybe? Oh, how about this? Now I should be super loud. How's that? Good? Okay, I fixed the pillow. Okay. Cool beans. Alright, let me put this away. I'm constantly in situations many weeks where I'm having to deal with computers and other humans' interpretations of such forcing over complex billing situations. For way too long. Yeah. You're away for way too long. Yep. That makes a lot of sense to me. You're totally good. I was thinking that I wonder if you have a mic that's more so for recording because this is the issue. I was gonna say that my snowball isn't so directional, so it picks me up from. No, it's the settings for it. That's all. I set it quieter because, like, if I'm here, it can get crazy. But if I'm farther away, like I'm gonna have to be for a minute, then it's fine. We'll go on to voice chat in like 20 minutes. I tried to charge my headset and it wasn't plugged in properly, so it just didn't get charged. I'll be right back. I'll read that message in a second. Okay, you have so much to do. Oh no. We got it. I do too, but I want to do some stuff that's very specific. Let's see here. That's fine. Not worried about that. Actually, I did do that, didn't I? That gets done. Not worried about that. Okay. Actually, A lot of no peer support time for things develop. Yeah, well, we haven't had HCAP for like a month. Right. I've done my best to compensate in the meantime, but as we produce out peer support is really the only thing that. Yeah, for me too. There. Well, and what's interesting, I'm sure there's like supplementary things that will work. I've had a couple good experiences, like talking to Kyle when he was driving the whole way helped a lot. But that was a really long period of time. So if you have somebody on a really long car trip, that works. Okay, take a nap. Yeah. Enjoy your nap. Relax. No problem at all. In fact, I am glad you're taking a nap, and allow the bed to take all of your troubles and float them away like you are on a poofy cloud. The poofiest of clouds. Trying to reestablish. I hate that this little heart is here. Can I make that hide? I guess I cannot. Interesting. Do I have to like stretch this out a bit? Okay. Very interesting. Yeah, that heart really wants to be in the way. Okay. Presence in the Discord again, because I can definitely host it, but I don't really have to draw or presence that you do. Yeah, and don't even worry about it right now. I feel like, or my impression is that the further that we go with these ideas, the easier it will be to do something like that. Right now, it's easy peasy. Basically, do no sweat it. No sweat. No sweats at all. Okay. Right. Yep. That makes a lot of sense to me. Brain stubby take over. Yeah. That makes a lot of sense to me. I also think this space is important for recalibrating, because the brain stabbies don't take over. So then if you want to know if something is like also helpful as a strategy or as like an approach, now you have a reference point of what not brain stabbies is like. So, cause I bet you didn't have, correct me if I'm wrong, I bet you didn't have the kind of insight or clarity about those brain stabbies that you can now, where you're like, okay, 15 minutes, the thing is happening. Okay. I am gonna do this. I'm gonna put some stuff in the what you calls it. You know, LBRB. Feel free to add more in the chat. I'll be right back. Oh yeah, I'll put it in there. I'll put them in the dishwasher. good boy. Such a good boy. I'll be right back again. Sorry. Doing too much. That's me. Yeah, silly. Huh. Alright, I'm back. Let me read chat. I get caught up with that ear scene. You look so divine, as another man, I'm pleasantly surprised, the way you look today, but why are you so quiet, as if nothing to say, I'll take praise and blossom, and make a little sound, I'll hear it from the treetops, all over the town, so let me hold you tight, I'll be in heaven above, I'll always want
Oh, what? Yeah. Okay, I'm getting caught up. Right. That's cool. That's cool about music. I think my concern ultimately becomes that I can't imagine. Yeah. Yep. Right. They just aren't there. Right. But yeah. I agree with this strongly. I feel like when I'm tired, or my energy is just like literally my physical energy, metabolic energy is like really off, it's hard. But other than that, it's pretty good. I have a theory about what's going on. I think it might have to do with actively naming things. Like you yourself actively naming and labeling things. I wonder if you listen to music in a different way when you're cleaning. Or you're a little more focused on identifying all the little aspects of the song. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. That's what it really comes down to. Trying to interject space management with choosing isn't nearly as effective. Yeah. Yep. It's better for the brain stabbies to just not happen than to try to relieve the pain after they happen or while they're happening. That's not as good as just keeping it from happening. Anyways, yeah, so alright, 7 minutes and I'll put on the headset. Let me just fix this with some glue. Got something with magnets that's popping off all the time. I must glue it instead. Alright. Oh, so there's a video we should watch with support about top-down, bottom-up thinking and autism, neurotypical, and the difference there. I think it's describing what I'm trying to describe, but in terms that I actually don't find accurate enough. That is to say, I think that's the closest thing to what I'm talking about with the memory difference between declarative, non-declarative, and how it works with semantic, like even that difference. So that's something that I hope to share with y'all, especially you two that are kind of my co-conspirators in this. Lauren too, of course, but basically all the Imaginarian type vibes. Does this come off or is this stuck in place? Okay, maybe just the one that breaks. Yeah. So, let me explain it. You are, but not what you're touching. Okay, so I'll get deeper into that. Let me put this down somewhere so it can dry. And I have to grab another thing that was drying that I'm gluing. I will explain. In fact, we'll explain when we get on voice. I'll set that up. I have 5 minutes to set it up, so that should be good. Alright. Here, wait, just for aesthetic reasons, and because I did not wash off my makeup from the other night, I will throw on the banana! Hello! Hi! I would enjoy to see a movie. That's where falling in love happened. I think Wub is nice. Okay, I love being this. Alright, just for now. With my baby, gonna be white, stepping out something, no maybe, dressed up tonight. Move your wing, 'cause I'm swimming myself. On your nails? What do you say? Not with my baby, 'cause I'm in white. Okay, where was I? Okay, HCAT. Oh, wait, let me do this first. Change settings. Okay. we are. Somebody, I'm still not confident in attributing to affect regulation, stimulation, different parts of the brain, and then the space management itself stimulation. Yeah, because I think that's why music still works to some degree. Interesting. Right. But it's the incongruity between the consistency between music enjoyment and HCAT that can account for. Okay, yeah. Let's talk that through because I'd like to hear where you're at in your thinking, and then I can share where I'm at. And there's also like room for me to keep exploring. It's not settled. Okay, this is untrue. I know what time. 12, 2, 3. Wait, whoopsie. Oh god. Okay, so the topic for today, let's change that, is going to be there. Let me drag it up a little bit though. It's kind of in a weird place. That's fine. Okay, let me figure out. Alright, so I'm gonna be quiet for a second. I don't think we need music.
Hello. What's up? Um, there's no stream sound.
Got it. I fixed it. Now it's fixed. I think. Wait. Can you hear me and you?
Got it. Yeah, you got it.
I
Okay.
fixed it. Okay. I forgot to take the
Yep.
mute off of the mic when I was switching it over. Okay. Hello.
Hello.
Yeah, so many thoughts. So the listing. Okay. Let me back up a little bit. So I have made a couple of claims. One of the claims I made is that non-declarative memory is impaired in autism. Declarative memory is intact and in fact can be supercharged. And then refining that even a little bit more, the episodic memory can be strong or weak. If it's stronger, we can have more sensory environments that we recreate in our brain, like maybe being able to hear songs in your head or see like I have like the hyperphantasia. That may be the range there, but it's usually like not too bad. Even if someone has an impairment, it's not like absurd. Because if you had a really impaired episodic memory, like you wouldn't be able to form new memories at all.
Right.
So
I
that's
mean,
not happening.
I actually meant to ask about this when we were talking about it. I mean, this is sort of off topic of what we're gonna get into, but like, uh, I feel like the last time I was aware of sort of how the concept of it was being discussed. Certainly, I had never heard like episodic memory being sort of specifically attributed in discussions about it, but is that like genuinely what's going on with people that have short-term memory loss? Is
So
that like when they like when it happens, it's that like whatever part of their brain is processing procedural memory or episodic memory is like becomes impaired, and so they just can't form new memories.
it's kind of like that. The issue is that short-term memories get converted into long-term memories. That may be a little bit too simplistic or literal, but basically, like, the person that isn't able to form new memories, it's actually more of an issue of the long-term memory, not transferring it over. So, like, there's people where they'll forget a few seconds later. There's people where you can kind of get a baseline for the day that's a little bit retaining, but it's not moving over to long term. So
Okay.
yeah, so it's not like you
Well, and
tell.
like
Yeah, go ahead.
I
Well,
I also like think about how like I think the only time I've ever really seen any depiction of like the sort of extreme short-term memory loss where they've got like a 60-second
mhm.
like or even just like a couple minutes or like a day. The
Yeah.
only places I've actually seen that depicted is in movies,
Right.
right? Like I've never seen documentaries or anything where that's an actual thing. I'm sure at least to some degree that actually exists, but I would wonder how accurate the idea that somebody could have like a 60-second memory or a 5-minute memory is true.
My understanding of
Certainly, I
it,
know that short-term memory loss is a real thing. That
yeah,
like there are people that can't hold on to memories for or like new memories for longer than like a day or something. But
exactly. Yeah. So, and my understanding, this comes from case studies that get brought up a lot, so that, like, when I'm digging around in different articles and different, published studies, I'm seeing them refer to it, and then they'll have kind of a brief discussion about it in light of what they're proposing or trying to uh, you know speculate about or create a hypothesis around. So, like, in the discussion sections they might bring it up, but a lot of times it gets brought up in the body where they're explaining, like, the precedent for what they're trying to do. They'll talk about these specific cases of people who have this, famous cases, and even more obscure ones that I've only read about once from that paper, right? So that's what I'm seeing, and it seems like the main issue is, yes, the short-term memory is at different lengths able to hold it. So there is probably like a 5-minute memory and like a I don't know if there's like a 30-second. I think your short-term memory wouldn't look like that unless there's something else going on. Like, as far as I understand it,
right,
the reason why they are able to use short-term or working memory is because these are really different regions of the brain, and even if they have like a lesion, sorry, or a, like, traumatic brain injury to knock out both, I you might just be kind of vegetative. I'm not really sure. I don't
sure.
know. But a lot of the times when it gets brought up, it seems like there's a lot of focus on this idea that, like, look, the short-term memory is holding it together, but it can't get over to the long-term memory. So that's more the issue. And because, like, one example that stands out to me was, like, there's a person who they didn't know that, I think it was like their father died or their wife died or something like that, and every day they would ask where they were, and anytime they had to tell them, they would, like, process the grief again. So, like, they were lucid enough to experience grief, and it sounded like it was a daily sort of thing. So that's, yeah.
That sounds awful.
It does. It does, which again is why I
Oh
say,
man.
yeah. So even though like there's somebody saying that they have like there's a term, it's passing it on to support, where you have very deficient or something deficient short term, or no, sorry, autobiographical memory, something of an autobiographical memory impairment, but it's still not that severe. So even if you're deficient, maybe it's very deficient even, um, it's not so extreme that like I don't think this would define your disability the same way that what I propose, the non-declarative sequence memory and procedural memory, is impaired. I think that's more significantly impaired when it comes to ASD. So, okay, so caveat one, declarative memory is episodic memory, which still may have some differences or may even be stronger than usual. And again, I think it's developmental in part why it would get stronger. And then the aspect two is the semantic memory. And there's another subdivision I'm looking at now and taking seriously for semantic. So there's no requirement of context with semantic memory. However, you can have global configural or configurational. I forget which word it is. Maybe it's configurational. So you're concerned with the configuration of the details in a kind of context, and then there's local featural. So there's no requirement of context in semantics, but it can be present, and I'm gathering that when you have the global configural or configurational, I have to look that up, maybe configurational, you are adding and using context. You're developing a sense of where things are in relationship to each other. Whereas if I'm correct that autism is primarily a visual spatial disorder, processing disorder, all of these are metaphors built on visual spatial information in a literal sense. So
So
yeah.
I have a question
Yep.
about HCAT.
Yes.
Um, do you think that our overdeveloped episodic memory is contributing to our ability to do these things at the time that we're doing them because of the way that we're like sort of processing the contextual information around this very specific sort of time in place? Time not being like, I guess, the best word because we're not so good at that, but like for, for convenience sake, I think you know what I mean.
Yeah.
That like, because it's not just that the that being in HCAT working with other people works. It's that I'm ready to do it. Right? On Sundays at noon, I'm like, cool, let's get going. Right?
Yeah.
So it's like my brain is able to categorize this specific sort of chunk of space and time
Yes.
as like, this is when it doesn't hurt to do this stuff, so it's time to do it. And I feel like that has to do with the way that I'm processing my episodic memory.
Yeah.
And like maybe we could find a way to leverage that outside of peer support. I don't know how. Because it does feel like it would also need to coincide with a very efficient way to combat how much it hurts for us to do space management for prolonged periods of time.
Yeah.
Which is where sort of the really bad, like that's where the sticking point is, because so far I don't have anything else. I've tried a bunch of different things and nothing else seems to really stave off the pain.
Right. And I have thoughts on that with so integrating the new
Yeah.
information. So first of all, like the declarative memory, there's overlaps in the regions that are taking care of that. Non-declarative memory is not so much. I'll have to look into that. There may be a few overlapping areas that do both, but they're much more distinct, which is why I think you can have such a dramatic disability in one area that normally they work together, but regionally in the brain they're not that close. But that's for the semantic episodic, that's not true. And for all I know, when there is overlaps, that's why we have the global configurational stuff. Does that make sense? Like whenever there is an overlap,
That might be like the stuff that's fine and the stuff that isn't overlapping may be part of a system of impairment. I don't know yet. I gotta look into that. Okay, so but
Yeah,
uh,
that makes sense.
yeah, so what I think is happening is, so this place, time, all this stuff about HCAT, you've made a kind of a meta object. And since we're
Yes.
saying that our semantics are local and featural, if we want to deal with a more abstract object, or do something that's more abstract or more complex, or that many people would approach as a sequence and use their sequencing brain to do that, we just make a bigger object. So you've successfully converted space and time and all of the features into an object that is a local object. You could hold this HCAT concept in a vacuum and list its features.
I see.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
So that's what my thinking is. My current thinking is that that is our workaround and our cheat that sometimes looks like we can do sequence stuff because it can produce some of the same results, which is really what we're caring about and what other people care about ultimately. This is my analogy of, like, if you're unable to see color and your job is to move red chairs and there's some other tell that the chair is red, you will figure it out, and you may not need to tell everyone that that's how you're doing it, right? Because all that we really care
Right.
about is chair get moved. So I'm thinking that could be the mechanism that we're using, is like, okay, I have to, and why we have to do this, we'll have to get in this like top down bottom up thing, which again is, I think, a description of what I'm trying to say, but I think my explanation is better and ultimately makes it easier to understand. But like this idea that like the forest versus the trees, which I never really liked as an analogy, that we have to see all the trees, but as like we see all the trees to then create a forest whose features are the trees.
Right. I think where that metaphor or that analogy often like falls apart is that it's like the idea is that you're still seeing the forest as a conglomeration of trees,
Mm-hmm.
which isn't like abstracted up high enough,
Yeah.
right? You need to be able to see the forest as a single object
Yes.
and then be able to break it down into its constituent parts. And I
Mm-hmm.
think that's I if I'm following this, that's sort of what you're saying.
Yeah.
Is that's where the analogy sort of falls short, is that it's not necessarily um, making space for that specific step of
Right.
like abstracting one level up higher,
Right.
because that's what we're doing is we're taking all of these constituent parts, and instead of sort of seeing them as a system of constituent parts, it's just one big object.
Yes. And I
Yeah.
think this is where I think more autistic people should be told about the power of abstract reasoning, and also it would explain why when you do have an autistic person that is exposed to those sorts of ideas, and even sometimes without it, we perform higher than typical people on abstract reasoning. So that would explain why. And then the issue then is that our brains may be very active trying to find all of the features of smaller objects, knowing that we need to make a bigger object out of it. So that's stressful, but it's a way of creating an ability to move. Like ultimately, I think autism have doing type 2 and there's doing type 1. Doing type 1 is blended. Doing type 2 has something impaired that is related to context and knowing your relationship with other objects. So like for us, instead of moving 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 and starting to know where we are more and more over time, because the other argument I'm having here that I want to successfully make is that non-declarative memory, it gets more active the closer you get to the goal. So that's both in terms of a reward and also focus. So for us, we're not moving through it and getting more and more focused and more reward and an anticipation of a reward. And also, I was talking with Kyle about this. That's probably what gets us pissing people the hell off, is like people are trying to get that reward and we're gunking it all up because we aren't working that way, and we may even have something that we can't learn that way, so we need to rely on muscle memory, and the process of learning something via muscle memory looks really different. So there's a lot of things that are wrong for collaborating together without a better framework to be compassionate. But the main thing is that like that person would normally get more and more focused and more of a reward by moving through the steps, and we're like, wait, but what? And they're like, no, just keep going, like, and we're like, what? um
Yeah, and we're just like, but why though?
yeah, but why? But how are you
And they're
doing
like,
this?
why do you need to know why? Just keep going.
Right.
Like, if you just keep moving forward, you'll get to the goal. And
Right.
it's like,
And
can you confirm that?
I
And why I should even want to be there?
yeah, and this here's an option for like compassion, because I do know like there's a problem right now. Kyle is really pointing that out with like autistic advocacy and like shitting on neurotypicals all the time.
Yes.
So if think of it this way, they're not just like stupidly getting rewards, right? They're not just like yeah,
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 of
yeah.
course.
They are getting more focused. So then if something does go wrong, they can adapt. Now, granted, I'm also saying that there is a fluid exchange between declarative and non declarative that we don't experience. So they get more and more focused, and sometimes they do have to switch over and go into something that's going to rely more on episodic memory or using, specific semantic details to like troubleshoot, right? So,
Right, but the point being that like they can seamlessly do that,
right.
and
And
we're just stuck in one.
we're stuck in one, and as they're approaching doing that, they're primed to keep receiving rewards. There's that other aspect, that moving through space thing is still going, and this could even have implications for ADHD. So if like, why are you getting distracted? Because nothing is telling you, oh, we're still working on this thing. Like you didn't pivot because you got so many rewards, so focused, and now the stakes are even higher, so you're getting even more focus and even more rewards for adding on this troubleshooting. What's the word I'm looking for? Not off ramp, but uh, detour, right? So then they can go back on task because there's something that's still rewarding them and focusing them. There's parts of their brains that are primed and mostly getting more active, right? Like that's kind of how that works, is my thinking on this. So then we can understand, it's like, oh, okay, so maybe if we explain to people, hey, you know how it feels when you're troubleshooting? That's kind of where we are all the time, and it's developed differently as well. It's not exactly the same, because if you don't have these other regions, to really help you out or assist you or create the overarching like method that you use, it is still different. But for us to be able to imagine what each other are going through would then help us to work more collaboratively, and then deal with some of the resentment stuff, because like also,
Yeah,
yeah, like one of the things that's happening online, and I don't pay as much attention to it, but Kyle sees it on like Twitter and stuff because he uses Twitter.
right.
People
Yeah,
are
which is a
just,
dumpster fire, of course.
I know, right? But people are just kind of like insulting neurotypicals, like,
Yeah,
and then making it sound like their lives are just a piece of cake, and it's like it's not. And
yeah,
yeah,
right. And yeah, and that's something that I actively work towards not doing. I think when we're having these sorts of conversations, it's just a lot easier to generalize than like constantly
yeah,
make exceptions for the people that we know are not in the sort of piece of cake camp that we're, which is to say that like we're saying that this one very specific way of processing information is a piece of cake for them, so
hmm,
there are things that they can do seamlessly that we cannot.
right.
Not that their lives are always easy, because that's just not how being alive works. Like
Also,
there's
be
an entire religious philosophy about how everything is pain, right?
yeah,
Like they didn't come to that because they had, like, I mean, the Buddha was probably autistic, but that aside, like, you know, uh, like he didn't come to that conclusion because he was like, oh, there's only a select handful of people that are suffering all the time. He was like, we're all suffering all the time because life is hard. Just being like, not modern life is, it's just hard to be a human being alive.
yes,
Um, and that's something that has to be kept in mind. And like, um, I think, interestingly, I think that sort of what you brought up extends to, um, or let me start that over. I think this is just a general problem with a lot of young people,
Hmm.
like neurodivergent or otherwise. I
Yes.
mean, obviously, the overwhelming majority of people that are dominating social media platforms are neurodivergent.
Yeah, we really
Um,
should. We really need to
but
acknowledge we're doing that, by the way. Like
yeah,
us, we have to, because right now we're making
yeah,
people uncomfortable, and we need to start realizing that we are now a group, and
yes,
we have to start thinking about the culture that we're making collectively.
yeah. So, um, but basically what I was bringing up there is that, like, I think this is just a general problem, right? I
Mhm.
mean, this is sort of where I see, like, on the sort of the far left political side of things, of, like, you know the like all landlords are parasites,
Yeah.
and like eat the rich and stuff like that. And it's like, I get the sentiment that's being aped at with those statements. Like, they're making, some sort of edgy statement about the state of our society and the way that things need change, but there's always this ire that is
Mhm.
targeted towards the individual people that have succeeded the most from this sort of twisted economic model,
Right.
when it's like those people were always going to exist within this model. And just the way that we can't expect, like, people in poverty to make their lives more successful through individual responsibility, we can't expect the top 1% to fix things through
Mhm.
individual responsibility, because that's not the system that we live in. The system that we
Right.
live in is specifically designed to ideologically uphold individual responsibility while ensuring that there is as little control over your destiny
Mhm.
within society as possible.
Right.
So billionaires, Elon Musk, Jeff Bezos, these whack jobs, they are the product of the system that developed them and indoctrinated them
Mhm.
into who they are today,
Right.
right? Like, and there was always going to be that person in this system.
Mhm.
And I
Exactly.
think
That's a
that
really good
there is
point. That part. Yeah.
that sentiment to just constantly, like, point the finger at individuals, which, like, I get why people do that. I hate Elon Musk too.
Mhm.
He is a scourge on the planet, but, like, if it's not him, it's going to be somebody else. And it there always needs to be that highly abstracted understanding of where we are and why we're here.
Yeah.
And to bring it back to the topic, neurotypical individuals are not the reason why neurodivergent people, and, sort of more specifically to our purposes, autistic people, are struggling so hard.
Right.
Like, they are the majority. The society that we live in was set up to benefit the majority in all aspects except for one. um, but, like, that's just the way that things are. And the longer that we continue to point the finger at individual people as the result, like the reason that we're struggling so hard, like, the longer we're not going to get anything done.
Yeah. And
Like, our approach has to be that top down abstracted approach.
the thing that I wanted to like hammer in on with this too, so to get specific with the brain and what I'm suggesting about it and how we should think about the difference. So if somebody has, I was saying they have this ability to get more focused and more of a reward working in terms of a sequence and a series of steps, because they excel at it, they in that area see more of what needs to be done and what
Right.
they need to do. So therefore, they actually have more responsibility than we do in that area, which is covers a lot of ground, and to be fair, like covers more ground than maybe would be the case if we had spaces adapted for autistic people. Like maybe there's a slightly different way to do it that would be better, and autistic people may be a little bit more useful and able to contribute then. So, but there's not a lot of contributions we can make to an area where we can't see what's going on, and we can't maybe see or appreciate all that they're taking care of. because there's more than we can see that they are responding to because they're excelling at this area. Similar in many ways to how we might describe some of our strengths, but those strengths developed in order to cope with an environment as well, without the ability to do some kinds of perceiving of reality. So that's
Right.
sort of my
And
argument. Yeah.
yeah, and to add to that, I think this is exacerbated by the fact that our sort of, as autistic people, our specific sort of perceptual inclinations actually lead us to view a lot of the things that they are taking care of and focusing on as insignificance
Yeah.
or irrelevance.
Yeah.
And in many cases, they are, right. They're sort of
There are
you know, going
examples
around their
where that's
elbow
true.
to scratch their ass. But like for the most part, I think it really does come down to like our specific mode of thinking disinclines us towards the importance of those things.
Well, so I mean, potentially
And
not even importance, because first off, dysprioria, right? But second off,
sure.
my argument is there's stuff happening that we don't even really see.
Right.
So even
Which
to consider it
like
important
I
would
what
be hard. Yeah.
right. Well, yeah, poor word choice. But I mean, you saying that even because if there are things that we're not seeing, there may be aspects of what they're doing that we are seeing.
Yes. Right.
But
Right. Right.
because we can't
Yes.
see other aspects of it, we're like,
Mm-hmm.
that's dumb. Why are you doing that?
Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
Yep.
And again, like in many cases, there's a lot of stuff going on that's just like, genuinely, what the hell?
Yeah.
But I think that we are very much inclined, and I think I've even touched on this quite a bit in the past in like other HCATs and stuff, that like we do have to recognize that there are things that we can't see, and just because we can't see it doesn't mean that it doesn't matter on a systemic level.
Right. And we can,
and like that's okay, right? We don't need to see it for it to matter. It's just recognizing that it is that way, and like sort of creating systems and organizing things in such a way that facilitates our ability to do the things that we can see, and not be forced to involve ourselves in things that are steeped in the things that we can't see.
Right. And again,
because that's what's going on right now, right? Is that we're stuck engaging in all these things that we're just blind to.
Yeah. We're lousy at it. We're lousy at it beyond by default, but by definition. Like that's what's going on with us. So then and then I mean the important thing is like we won't be frustrating or making enemies out of just regular people who are just, you know, trying to be nice to us or help us out or something, and then they're hearing us kind of shitting all over and being like, fine. I mean, because like legit, if they went, fine, you run the world, that would be bad. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah, like we obviously we joke all the time about like if autistics built the world, everything would be perfect, and it's like,
no, there's a lot we don't see and can't do.
Yeah.
And what would be nice instead is if we can have this framework. And I have concerns about some of the people doing kind of the advocacy shit around autism and what they're saying and how they're saying it, and just kind of like what I need to tell them is you can't say, oh, I'm going to dismantle ableism and then try to effectively turn, or I would even say transmogrify your disability into how do I say this very carefully? Out of
their words, a superpower.
Yeah, like you're basically trying to eliminate it in a sense, where it's like, well, actually, I'm a misunderstood super genius mega person, and I'm like, you may be those things, but you're still disabled. Like, it's okay to just be disabled. And until, like, I don't see how you can say you've dismantled ableism if you can't just like be like, yep, I have a disability. I don't understand why is disabled a dirty word? And when people say I need to have a new word for myself, I kind of want to ask them why. Like,
Sure.
why does it matter? If you're saying it's because people are going to shit on me for being disabled, okay, that person probably isn't who you need to be working with that much. So yes, that will happen, but
Like, also, that's more or less just internalized ableism, right? You're saying that I can't live a normal life if I adopt this label because other people are going to see me as inferior and useless, right?
yeah.
That's not going to solve the problem. We can't make the solution to disability pretending that disability doesn't
Cause
exist.
what, cause what you'll do if you try to pretend that it doesn't exist is you'll modify your goals to avoid your disabilities, and then
Right.
the way that I see people reinforcing that decision is to say that all the goals that they're disabled at are actually really stupid. And I'm like, that's an interesting thing to say. Like, it's,
Yeah.
yeah, that's, and my concern is it's just coming from an inaccurate model. And if we can get to this one, it'll be like, hey, there's a real physical thing happening in your brain that is just congenital. Like, this is how you are, uh,
Yeah.
from
And
day zero.
right. And the sort of unspoken or like the quiet part of that is that everyone is stupid except for me,
Yes.
right? That's what it comes down to, is that like that like I am such a super genius that I can see that, you know, what are we, like 11% of the population,
If that,
or is it
yeah.
higher than that?
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't remember the numbers, but let's say 20%, just to be extra liberal with the numbers. Um, like you're saying that 80% of the population is like so ignorant and stupid that they can't like accomplish anything,
Right. When,
which is just like really not a great way to live your life and to view the world around you, to treat everyone that doesn't act just like you as wholly inferior, right? And I'm quite confident that most of the people that are sort of using the rhetoric that we're kind of pointing at would wholesale like or like wholly reject that this is what they're doing, but like that's sort of the logical conclusion of these ideas,
yeah.
right? That anything that I'm impaired at is stupid,
Yep.
and that's why I don't do it. Like, no,
Right.
you don't do it because you can't.
Yes. Now, then the
And like
argument,
that's okay.
the
There's other people that can do it and you don't
exactly.
have to.
Exactly. That part, and also it's like, okay, if we really want to get, in my opinion, past this like legacy of ableism and excluding disabled people from areas they could participate in, here's where I think the line really needs to be figured out for the first time ever. Okay, so I can't do that. I'm lousy at that. Are there features of that that I have something that it doesn't exist unless if you're disabled? Does this make sense? Is there features of that that I can contribute to that are coming from the developmental pathway that had to be on? And if that's true, can I maximize those on purpose with the goal of contributing? And that's a very separate question from other ways to live as a person with a disability, right? You don't have
Right.
to goof around with that, but if you want to, there's probably a lot of areas where that would be very helpful, and it might even change things for the able people who are involved themselves in it, because they might have a couple more options in how to continue doing that work in different conditions, because we sometimes may have overlapping concerns, and we may have the concern all of the time where they have it 5% of the time. But I think if you can figure it out for the person who's the most impaired, you can learn a lot about why things go wrong,
Yes.
with the thing you're trying to do. So but again, I want to add and stress that's not a project anyone has to do, but it becomes available if we pivot more to something like this way of thinking.
Right. Which, I mean, just to sort of, I guess, meaningfully sort of put pressure on that, like, I think that there is a lot of sort of general, like, more nebulous resentment towards that, because our mode of thinking and processing information is so alien to sort of what seems to be the standard, that we are forced into the position of figuring out how to do that, how to take on that project of working into the things that we can do in sort of existing projects, like ways that we can use our unique way of processing information to contribute to projects that currently exist. And that doesn't, as somebody that I think is I'm a bit more optimistic than maybe your average autistic Twitter user, don't feel great about that, right? That's pretty exhausting. It doesn't feel great to know that I have to come up with the solution, not by myself, but for the sake of the point, I have to come up with the solution to my own impairments. Because currently the people in charge can't. They don't have the knowledge, the data, the capability to do so. Not that we can't create a situation where they could, but you gotta walk before you can run, so to speak.
Yeah, and my I guess my counter argument to that concern, or I guess my way to address that concern, is to say, step one, you have to have autistic people working from their strengths, so not from their disability. So if we're going to start muddling about in the disability aspect to try to troubleshoot, we need to be doing pretty good. So it shouldn't be we're doing this or we drown. It should be, here's the things that take the disability off the table for us so that we can have a high quality of life and a reasonable level of independence depending on our support needs. So if we can get that first, then for those of us who want to take on that additional work, we're in a better place to do it. And it's optional. It's so optional. And it would come from knowing a baseline of what it's like when we're relatively free, we're moving around in society in a way that's reasonable, our strengths are what we're leading with in those areas of our life, we know what that feels like, and then noodling around with what insights come out of our disability with some sort of like collaborative team in some way, even if it's just like a support team that we talk to and the people we're working with don't really understand, it's okay. But it would be better if people are working collaboratively. And this is going to get much easier when we pinpoint what exactly is our disability. Like, the longer we don't have that nailed down, the harder it is to, first of all, design and advocate for a life that is reasonable and doesn't constantly rely on the disability when there's an alternative. And then when we do take on the work of advancing a method or a technique to incorporate autistic people and whatever insights come out of our disability, we're not doing it so that we can have enough money to live. Like, that's batshit insane. We have to both be developing a strength-based lifestyle and optionally contributing to this sort of an idea, which could be really meaningful, right? So it's more about like adding additional meaning to your life, not not like trying to rescue yourself with it. That's not good.
Yeah. And like that is, that's a lofty project.
Yep.
To figure out how to convince, basically to convince society that like,
and autistics, I'd be convincing everybody about this. Yeah.
That like this group of people shouldn't have to sort of fight for their survival in this way. It's killing us. Like the very act of attempting to survive is killing us. This cannot continue.
Yep.
and actually have that taken seriously.
And not taken
Be-
as an excuse, right? Like that,
exactly,
like,
because
oh,
that was exactly what I was
you
going
want
to
a
bring
free
up.
ride or something.
Right, because we're already in that place with most people that are like, oh, you're struggling, well, you know, bootstraps and all that.
Yep.
So it's I guess to that specific point, it probably will have to be integrated with that, right? We'll have to integrate the idea of saying, hey, autistics can't be doing this, with a more societal understanding of like, you know, we are actively eroding the potential of the human experience through forcing people that are not okay to fight for their own survival.
Right, in ways that they can't actually succeed at. Like that's going to
Right.
drive you bonkers, cuckoo, bananas. Like you can't be healthy and do that. So yeah, what we'd have, and this is what I'm saying, we'd have to pinpoint what exactly autism is, so that when we say to society, we need these accommodations for everybody with this. Like this is the ground floor. And even if they're like, that's not reasonable, I'm like, okay, cool, but if you give us this, you will get neat stuff in return. At the very least, you'll have like a chance to see what we can actually do. But also, when we're functional and comparable to our peers, like that's going to resolve a lot of the suicide rates. At the very least, just from like a human to human empathetic perspective, I'm convinced, and I'm happy to try to convince as many people as possible, that if you want the suicide rate to go down, you have to give us a chance to be competitive with our peers when it comes to taking care of ourselves, adding in the support. That the support is almost like we're cyborgs, you know what I mean? So we have to have that structural exoskeleton, but once we have it, that we are moving along in life in a way that's analogous to our peers. Because it's not just that it hurts to compare yourself. There's a reason why people go towards that level. There's a reason why people are not doing good when they're below that level, and there's a reason why people, when they have an opportunity, go higher up to a certain point, right? So there's a quality of life thing that if we, that set point doesn't change in disabled people, is what I'm trying to say. We don't feel good at a lesser quality of life because we're disabled. That doesn't
And
follow.
this is sort of one of those epiphanies that's like, duh, but you know, when you put the pieces together, it feels like novel information. That this is probably why so many autistic people are sort of specifically diagnosed with depression, even when we might not personally feel like we exhibit maybe textbook symptoms of clinical depression,
Right.
because the conditions are the same. Right. I think that I have definitely struggled with like about as close to clinical depression as you can get, and I've described a lot that a lot of times the ideations come from, you just want it to be over.
Yes, correct.
You've reached a point where you cannot imagine it getting better. You have so much data indicating that this is what it's going to be like forever.
Right. Exactly.
And you don't need to have some sort of clinical imbalance in your brain, like sort of chemically, to reach that point.
Right.
Because that's what it feels like for autistic people, that we reach 30, 35, and we're like, cool, I've been at this for 3 decades now and nothing's getting better. What's the point?
Yep. And
right?
it
You
has
don't, yeah, go ahead.
it has to be stated and restated and restated and restated that, like, the reason we're unhappy is because
we don't have enough we don't have enough money. We can't seem to earn enough money. We don't earn enough money to peers who are comparable in specific things that the job is supposed to be about. So like there's no clear way for us to perform at the level that humans seem to accept as like the baseline for a good life. We can't get there, and that's the actual problem. Not it's not it's not about like, oh, I'm thinking about things wrong. We literally are not able to have families if we wanted to. Our friendships are very difficult to maintain because we can't afford to do anything. Everything social costs money. I don't know if people are somehow missing this, but like everything social costs money. Just absorb that information, everyone. So if we have a social impairment and that's all people are worried about, sure, but I think that's actually downstream of these memory and visual spatial processing impairments. So we already have a limited pool of things we can do. We have not enough money, and we don't have a way to pay for the things that would make it any better. I bet Elon Musk is less depressed for somebody who's neurodivergent, whether or not I think he's an ass dingle, but like he can throw money at his problems. We are just way, 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 way less likely to ever be able to just throw money at our problems, even if we start off at a position where that's possible. I mean, and I don't mean like saving up money. I mean like every week we don't earn, every day we don't earn what a similar typically developing person is capable of earning currently. So
like when I was 20, 21, 22, like I definitely thought I'd be earning a lot more money than I am now, because I was like, oh, this is just the natural progression. This is how this works, right? I earn more money the longer I'm in the workforce.
Right.
You know, I've been working for almost 16 years. And part of the reason I'm only making a lot more money than I was before is because I live in a much more inflated economy.
Right. And if we took,
like if I went back home, right, if shit went south and I had to go back home, I would go back to earning like somewhere between $8 and $10 an hour.
Right. We don't,
which is what I made when I was 20.
We don't progress is the problem. So like, if you compare us to somebody else, again, you don't want to do too much comparison because there's so many factors and we don't want to oversimplify it. But what I'm trying to say is that when you put an autistic person into a series of tasks, the disability hits there and it hits again and it hits again and it hits again, and it's always going to hit. It doesn't matter what factors are in place. The only way that you can avoid it hitting you in the face at this point is to throw money at the problem. And if you can't earn money, how? And I don't even think that's how it should get solved. But I'm just saying,
no, I don't think that's a good way to solve problems.
It's not. But also that's the system that we are currently in. So autistic people see the writing on the wall and they're done. And then we die because we don't want to do it anymore.
Well, and then this is further compounded by sort of the other aspects of our impairments, that like it's also just generally not very easy for us to do many of the things that a full-time job requires.
Rightfully so requires, by the way. You know what I mean? I don't disagree with those jobs. It's just that like
many of them are sort of, I don't like, I'll leave that alone.
Yeah. That's
I don't want
to.
I'm not trying to, because I could have definitely just now launched into a whole labor discussion, but that's not the discussion we're having.
Right.
But like I am in a position right now where tomorrow or Tuesday I will get some information and I will have to make a decision on whether or not I'm going to take a like 40 to 50 hour a week job that pays pretty well and has upward mobility and benefits, or a job that pays like $18 an hour that I'm actually not going to like burn myself out on
Yes.
because it'll be an enjoyable work environment and conducive to how my brain functions.
Yep.
And that sucks that I'm like, do I want to live in a way where my financial situation is struggling just so that I can have personal job security, not job security in the way that everybody else is worried about, where it's like, oh, does my job care about me enough to keep me on staff? No, like job security in the sense that like I'm not going to muck it up for myself
Yeah.
because I can't keep up with the responsibilities and expectations being put on me by the job.
Right. Yeah. And that's again, so it's like I guess to take it back to what I want to argue for, it's like what we need is not a BuzzFeed list of jobs that are compatible with autism, but we need a serious ongoing conversation about that gets updated as technology gets updated. We need that discussion to be happening, and that discussion can be, only between the very, very invested, right? Like we don't have to have all of society like worrying about us, but that discussion, if we're in spaces together, I think we need to have it. And I think the only way to really motivate people to have it is to understand better what exactly is autism. And then we can be like, oh, okay, it's basically going to be this kind of a disability with variations. Cool. Let me figure out a list of things that I can do and share them. And we all are doing that, and then play testing them. Like that's sort of my art. I've said this argument before too, earlier on. I mean, it could have been years at this point, but like we need to do our own version of like iterate, because the reason society looks the way it does is because a bunch of people iterated, and the iterations worked for a lot of people. And again,
Yes.
it's kind of collapsing now. I'm not saying this is going great, because we have other things that are kind of like replicating themselves like a virus too. But we need to use the fact that we now collapse space and time with the internet to be together, to iterate. Like, what are you doing? I'll try it. What are you doing? I'll try it. What are you doing? I'll try it. Like, and volunteer for each other's, you know, little laboratories and studies, basically.
Which is like, I don't know, sort of the core of the neighborhood, right?
Yes,
It's like,
exactly.
I'm trying this, maybe you should try it.
Right.
Like, I can't guarantee it's going to work for you, but here's something that you could iterate on if you wanted to.
And if you do, please report back your findings.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. And in order for us to do that, we have to have a certain way of looking at the whole situation, both ourselves and like the world. And right now, I think the sociological lens was a mistake. I mean, let me start that over. I don't think there's such thing as mistakes, because mistakes are learning. But I think if we keep doing it that way, it's gonna approach the realm of like, this is actually not that helpful.
To, I don't know, sort of try to expand on that in a way that I think you'll appreciate. It is the continued lack of interdisciplinary discussion.
Yes. Yeah.
Right? The sociological lens is important, right? We need to understand the way that the social aspects of these disabilities are operating within society, but it has to be married to the neurological understanding of what this is specifically, and even the psychological, like behavioral aspects of, okay, well, how does this sort of neurological brain map coincide with these behavioral patterns that we've identified are common, and how is that contributing to these specific sort of sociological phenomenon? Like, that is not happening, and it needs to happen. But that's a huge discussion, right? Like, interdisciplinary communication is just not a thing anywhere in the degree that it should be, right? That is just a whole thing that's not happening on the scale that it should be happening across pretty much every single disciplinary field.
Yeah. Well, and this is I've made arguments about this with people, and sometimes I get kind of, I don't know, jaded people coming at me when I share it. But we need to have a lot of academic people who have, let me start this over. I want people who are very accomplished academics to spend more time talking to the subjects that they research. Not to
Sure.
continue to research, but literally just to talk to them and see what those people are curious about and find out if there's any conversations that are impossible to have without these academics educating that population. So I think that academics need to step out of the university setting and start to talk with people in the fields that they're active in, that are, you know, interdisciplinary, close to, adjacent, whatever, but that all those professionals need to spend some like community service hours or something, just like hang out with the people that you're researching and
Yeah.
yeah, and just have an organic conversation. I know this sounds really silly, but you have to realize, oh, this group of people, especially online now, we're all kind of organizing into quote unquote communities. This group of people are talking without any of us knowing about it, and they are trying to figure this out because they don't trust us. So academics have to realize that establishing trust with the people that they research is actually a good idea. Now, don't do it for people you're literally doing a study on. Like, don't do it for those exact people. But
Yeah.
the general population, yes. And that's not going to make you any more biased or whatever. It's not. Like
You're gathering data. Like that is like
yeah, if
it's I don't know, it's more casual in a I don't know, it's like some degree it just feels like humanizing the subject matter, you know,
well,
which I
and
think can be
it
important, but it's also gathering data. It's understanding things in a lens that you're not going to understand in a lab setting.
and I think people who have these models that are, you know, being called like medical models, grossly speaking, need to know what, without like just, I don't know, trolling forums or something like that. Like don't make that a study. Don't do a survey. Like just talk to a
Just
few
talk to
people.
people.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Because that's how all of these cultures are getting, you know, sprouting up on the internet. It's just people talking to other people, talking at other people, sharing something in this, you know, very sort of like spontaneous way. So like that's the best way to put it. Have spontaneous conversations with people who you are typically studying. Uh,
Mhm.
do that. just do that. And then your training can inform what they want to do with it. But um yeah, that's sort of where I am with it. I think that needs to happen. We need, and for those of us who are in these let me these categories, right? Like I'm autistic, that's a category that I'm in. Okay, like we'd feel like there's an authority figure that we can complain to because right now it feels like, well, who even cares? Oh, well, we care, so we just like complain to each other, which is
Right.
ugly and not helpful and gets really
Yeah.
distorted really fast.
Yes. And yeah, I mean, not that that's never helpful, right? That's sort of the validation thing, but like it only goes so far, and certainly it's not creating solutions,
No, definitely not.
which is the important part,
Right.
right? Like what if like what are we all doing this for? To find solutions.
Right.
And lamenting to each other on the internet is not going to do that.
Nope. So yeah, if there's a way I could do that, and maybe there will be a way I can do it. It's like
Yeah.
there's
I,
got to be something where it becomes like you don't need to like just go fishing for autism friends or something, but like if you chose to study autism, know that people with autism didn't choose to have it, and that we can't choose to unhave it. um and that people who are working on it on a daily basis might be able to help us just by like keeping us in the loop a little. You know?
Yeah, and I can't help but think about this partially in the context of just like the way that communication on the internet is set up.
Mm-hmm.
Because like the only way to get a certain degree of awareness on the internet is to be popular,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because
Yep.
I've seen some of what you're describing happening, right? I've been on Twitter, like I was on Twitter for long enough that yeah, like I would see researchers that had a pretty big following and would be able to have somewhat spontaneous interactions with autistic people and other, whoever was relevant to their research online.
Right.
And I mean, even to that degree, it was usually like, I'm going to ask this question that's, pertaining to my research. Please answer it.
Yeah.
Which sort of comes off as just a survey, but it's very difficult to just communicate with a group of people or to even find a group of people, like a population of individuals that you would like to interact with on the internet, without any sort of prior circumstantial sort of system.
Right.
Sort of in a different access, like I guess just to share the way that I'm sort of trying to understand it in my own mind, is that like as an artist, like I want to expand my communications. Like I don't know how to get clients. And as it currently stands, without being able to spend absurd amounts of money for an agent, the only way that I can really do that is to go on Twitter and Instagram and get popular.
Right.
So that people will actually see what I do. Like I can post every day on Twitter and Instagram, but if it's not reaching people, like nobody's seeing it, and that means nobody's going to commission me for work. And that's going to be the same situation if some, unknown researcher goes on Twitter or Instagram or Facebook and just tries to create a space for discussion so that they can connect with a population of people. They don't have accessible methods to do that.
Yep. And because we're using the platforms off label anyway. Everybody.
Sure, like because we don't have any other option.
Yeah.
It's all we've got.
Yeah, exactly. So then what I think it needs to start to resemble, and this is why like the neighborhood is a good idea, is we need like Autism Town. And they, for example, like what's the best way to learn a language?
Go to the place where that language is spoken.
Yeah. Immersion, right? You're going to be like, I'm going to go to a place where the rules are based on this culture. And I'm going to figure it out. I'm going to learn about it. I'm going to have a good time. I think it has to exist a little bit like that, but also that means that those spaces need to exist more in a more realized way, which I think we can do with digital spaces, and it would be important to do with digital spaces for autism because we have to collapse space and time to do the iterative thing. And then they could like come in and just be like, "Hi guys," and you're like, "Hi person."
Oh, welcome to our lovely home.
Yeah, exactly. And that could be one feature of it. So I think that most of what needs to happen is technology being thought of as the necessary ingredient. But right now it's being thought of as like this liberatory tool. I'm like, I don't know about that. And so people are getting their hopes really high, and then they get disappointed, and then they get mad, and then there's all these feelings. Yeah.
The idea of that failed.
Yeah.
I literally have a book on my desk that I haven't started reading, to be honest, but it is literally called The Revolution That Wasn't, Why the Internet favors conservatism. Right? It's literally a book about how the idea of the advent of internet and communication technology was the promise of liberation, and that's not what it was. Not that it won't be eventually, right? Like,
Right.
I've talked about this before. Like, my roommate has a whole, basically a thesis about this, that based on history, there's no way that it's not going to be, because every single event of communicative progression resulted in enormous like social liberation for the entire planet.
Mm-hmm.
Like the invention of writing, the invention of the printing press, the invention of the telephone,
Yeah.
and then the invention of the internet. Like everything before the internet, there is a marked, like, clear distinction that after this happened, there was a rapid period of like discord and disruption, and then social liberation.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So we have evidence that that's going to happen, but I think it's maybe the focus on that's what it should be.
Yeah.
It's almost like just forcing it. Not that there shouldn't ever be a focus on it, but it's like that. It's like this trying to force the liberation as opposed to sort of focusing on projects
And this
using this this technology.
this is where we've invented terms like crybullying to talk about some of this, or like signaling, virtue signaling. So what people are doing is like screaming, I really do want the world to be better because this is not helping. So now I have to hear about people's insistence that that's what they're trying to do. And I'm like, cool, I'm going to go ahead and give you a gold star. Like, let's take you at your word for the most part. Notice nothing you're doing is working. like let's walk that back. We'll just take you at your word, and now let's talk about how you are not doing things that work. And that's why you keep insisting that you care about this, because this is not going well. So now we need to do something different. Like,
Yeah, no, that makes me think of anytime I fail.
mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Right? Anytime I fail, I feel this like immense sort of pressure to sort of reaffirm, like, no, I really did care about this. I didn't mean to fail. I wanted this to work. I'm sorry.
Yeah. And it makes people
feels like
vulnerable
that,
to
right?
it makes
that like when they try to do the activism and it doesn't get anything done, they're like, no, really, I care about this a lot. I want things to change.
And it makes you prone to conspiratorial thinking, paranoia, potentially creating a boogeyman, and then playing, pinata with the boogeyman. And I think that also is a product of being young as well, but also I think that we have an issue with trust in general. So what I'll go ahead and say, I'm going to trust these folks that are saying that that's their intention, and I'm going to tell them as a friend that they're clearly not accomplishing it. And don't tell me wait a minute, or wait until we start attacking people, literally attacking people. No, let's pause. I believe you mean well. I don't believe you have a plan. I don't believe that what you're doing is actually this deep, thought out idea. And even if it were, I don't think that's the kind of idea that will work. And I think endlessly discussing the idea is a cope, because you should be able to think of something you can do on a daily basis. Or else, what's changed? Do you see what I'm saying? Like this idea that you're gonna just like, I don't know. Go ahead.
Well, no, this is good, because this reminds me of something I was talking to Aiden about yesterday. That this, in their summation, is a product of great man history.
Yes. Uh-huh.
Because this is how we're taught history. So it's not just that it's a focus on, these overwhelmingly successful white men, but the idea that one person can change the world.
Yeah.
Or that one big event can change the world.
Right.
It's not like these invention of the printing press sent shockwaves around the world that absolved. No, it took decades to take effect, but it increased the ability for people to absorb information and communicate with each other on a long-term basis
Mhm.
across borders,
Mhm.
across very long distances, and that had a profound effect everywhere in a deep sense of interconnectedness,
Mhm.
right? And, and so yeah, I think that's probably a really big part of it, is that the way that we're taught history is that very exceptional individuals
Yeah.
accomplish things, and those individual accomplishments make waves in a short period of time, when
Yes. Oh
that's
my
just not
God.
how it happens.
This okay, and this goes into the negative direction too. It's this idea that there's this butterfly effect, the great man, and also I think even the evil man. There's like an analogous dualistic opposite, because we haven't broken free from that.
Absolutely, there is. Yeah,
So then you'll get people saying like, if you do this, horrible things will happen. And you're like, that's a really small thing actually. And then if you say horrible things will happen, especially to young people, they're going to get scared, dude. Like,
yeah,
you got to know that that's manipulative, and it's exploiting vulnerable people. When you're like, but it's the same logic. It's the same logic of like, one small thing will change the world. One guy will change the world. One guy will destroy the world. One small thing will destroy the entire world. And it's
yeah.
like,
Which
whoa,
is,
whoa, whoa.
well, and this makes me think of something we've also discussed quite a bit, which is the lack of unlearning indoctrinated modes of thinking, right?
Mhm.
Because these same people probably have a pretty reasonable understanding that telling children that if they do X, Y, and Z, they're going to burn
Yeah,
horribly
in hell.
in a pit in the ground for all of eternity
Yeah.
is a horribly traumatic, terrible thing. You don't do that to children, but it's the same thing on
It's
a
all
smaller scale, right?
it's
You're telling young, impressionable people that
yeah,
are in crucial stages of development
black
that
and white
if this
thinking.
thing happens, the world is over.
Yeah. You're also with autism, I think you're reinforcing something that's not very helpful, in that you're
Yes,
creating this black and white thinking, which we're more susceptible to,
yes,
and younger people are susceptible to.
absolutely.
And
I
then
100% agree.
yeah, oh shit, I had a thought that I wanted to add. Hold on, give me a second. Oh damn, I should have written that down. um I'm just gonna talk and see if I can get back to it.
Yeah, let it breathe. It'll come back.
Okay. Thank you. um So, I got it. If somebody's
Yep.
autistic and they're used to this idea that like, I can't get any momentum, there's too much inertia, you do start to believe in like a magical way forward, because you haven't experienced incremental progress in the same way. So
Right.
it does feel like, I need to win the lottery. I need a miracle. And I think that's very dangerous to tell autistic people, because
Yeah,
what
I mean, that is literally how I view the world, right? Like,
yeah. Well, it's
I,
not
like,
false to say that in these current conditions that's kind of what we're getting stuck with.
right, but
Not not
I've
everything
believed
is
that
like
for
that.
a very long time.
Yeah.
Right. No, good
We
point.
think
Very good point.
everything, once when we have like, well, the major theme of my life is that, it becomes very easy to believe that literally everything works like that. And you need, if the bigger the problem, the more you need a snap your fingers type of solution, because we're talking about our lives having that. Like, it becomes internally consistent and congruent for us to believe that. And the problem with this is, we as autistic people, in my opinion, need to know that we can calm down, um, and that there are things that we can be afraid of and experience that fear, but it's not our job to be afraid all the time on behalf of, I don't know, our species, because that's what we're kind of doing right now. Like, we're either being afraid on behalf of all our species all the time, or we're getting mad at our species for not doing anything about our fear and discomfort. Like we're saying you're stupid and you don't like us, and now we don't like you.
Right.
When really what it is we're getting told by some people who don't, I think are out of their depth. We're being told messages about how if you, let me start this very carefully. If you try to put things in perspective, you're becoming complacent. If you try to put things into perspective, you are doing something evil. When I have to say to people, no, no, we're not minimizing anything. And in fact,
Right.
your desire to label things accurately will come in handy here. We
Mm-hmm.
are trying to make sure that the things that aren't terrible in our lives are worked on. The things that we are good at in our lives are used. The things that are easy are done. Because right now that's not happening. And I've even
Mm-hmm.
read someone who I had to unfollow. I was so disappointed in what they were saying. Was an autistic person who says they're not going to do advocacy because they have to focus on all the social issues first, because otherwise it's some sort of pull yourself up by your bootstraps sort of feel good thing, like it's inspiration porn. And I'm like, okay, that's a perspective that doesn't follow from my reasoning. And my reasoning is that whenever we are taking on more than is reasonable for us to take on, we will not be doing well. How are you supposed to go from that already being the case to taking on the world? And you're phrasing it in ways that make it so life or death that you're going to fail, and you already feel like a
Yeah.
failure, and now you're denying that you feel like a failure by saying that everybody is making you feel this way. Like it's everybody's fault. And that's why you get people complaining against some activists, is this idea of like I'm just going to say that the world would be perfect if I ran it. The world would be perfect if all of you stopped being horrible.
Yeah.
Which, like, and when I kind of can hear these arguments, like the people, if you fight against that, or if you take my stance, they'll be like, oh well, they really are horrible and you're just sucking up to them and making them feel good. I'm like, what is wrong with you feeling good? Why won't you let yourself feel good? Like, there are so many ways to feel good in life, and that doesn't make the problems go away, and it doesn't make your ability to work on the problems go away. Especially when you're already impaired, you got to figure out what are you good at, what doesn't hurt. And at that point,
Right.
the conversation can start to be beneficial, because right now the conversation isn't even beneficial. And
Mm-hmm.
I don't have the heart to even look at it as deep as probably you have, because you at least see the Twitter shit. But I hear fumes of it, and my concern is that, getting back to like the first topic I was bringing in today, if we don't know how our brain is processing the world, and we are just taking in this information because it feels like it's doing the right thing, we can get really, really hurt over nothing, for nothing. We're already hurting. What is the good in getting really hurt? And it doesn't even accomplish anything. It just, if anything,
Right.
becomes an example to everybody of how to hurt yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's very sad that right now, the way that autism representation looks is a lot of people who I'm seeing hurting themselves. And it doesn't have to be like that. I think that's a distortion. I think it's a distortion. So, and yeah, that's just all I have to say. Is like, I want people to know that, like, there's no rule that says you have to feel bad in order to get closer to the truth.
Right. That like you have to sort of revel in your suffering.
Yeah.
To get closer to the truth. That you're in your pursuit of the truth, you are never allowed to feel good.
Yep.
Which I think is very interesting. Sort of to your point that like I've spent a little bit more time paying attention to some of these things than maybe you have, and then talking to people about it, especially other people that don't pay attention to it. There is this sort of sentiment that like there is that sort of black and white approach to it. Either you engage with the thing and it makes you feel horrible, or you never look at it ever.
Yeah.
And it's like, no, you can look at this the way you would read a book, right? You don't read the entire book every time you sit down to read.
Mm-hmm.
You read some of the book, you absorb the information, then you go do something else, right? If it really interests you, you will engage with it as long as you can manage.
Mm-hmm.
But it's not like this becomes the absolute priority above all other things. You're allowed to do other things while sort of absorbing aspects of this information. Yeah, I definitely concur with you about that idea that that you have to be in pain to learn about things going on. That was actually one thing I really, as much as it didn't work for me, that was one aspect of Hip Hop for Change I really appreciated.
Mm-hmm.
Was just this immense focus on, listen, y'all, this job sucks. Like, we got a bunch of white people that do not care about this really important thing that we're trying to talk about, and that hurts. So we have to find ways to feel good while we're doing it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I really appreciated that perspective, because it would have been that much harder without any focus on the importance of that.
Yeah. And for us too, it's like, so my argument is that there's should be something called dissequentia dysprioria. Like I decided it could be a slash, but I use dysprioria most of the time to talk about it. So if we say that we have a hard time prioritizing, if you accept my argument that what's happening is we can't follow a linear sequence of steps, and therefore deadlines don't work, right? So, and therefore hierarchies don't work. Okay, so if that's what we're saying, how do we know what's the most important thing? Okay, well, we could learn being in a lot of pain must be the highest priority. So even to create a semblance of being able to prioritize, which we have a lot of pressure to do, even if we can't, which I'm arguing we can't.
Mm-hmm.
I'm arguing it works like dysgraphia, dyscalculia, dyslexia.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so are we potentially creating a feeling, an intense feeling of pain, in order to know and to believe that people understand that we do prioritize? Which is very, 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 very concerning. And again, would look like some people to black and white thinking, but I think it's us trying to do the thing that our impairment makes us odd for, that we don't really have a brain that functions as like, this is more important than that, is more important than that, is more important. So I think we may intentionally be putting ourselves, not intentionally, put that differently, I think we may be drawn to this kind of like extreme self-harm way of engaging with information in order to have as much pain as possible to live up to the standards that we see of people being able to prioritize things. Of course, we're going to prioritize something that hurts like hell. And if we say that not only does it hurt like hell for us, but for everyone, and we've turned ourselves into some sort of like quasi-vigilante who can't do laundry or, go anywhere on time, what the fuck are we doing to ourselves?
Right. And I've certainly experienced that, right? The sort of reveling and like,
Yep.
I'm a little shit goblin. Like, and I don't think that's helpful.
It's not.
Right. It's good to acknowledge it.
Yeah.
Like, I need to be able to say
I'm lousy at it.
I can't do these. Yeah, that I'm no good at it.
Yep.
But there's an overemphasis on that. And I still do this, right? I've done it for so long that I still struggle. I still have a very hard time appropriately bringing attention to the things that I am exceptional at.
Mm-hmm.
Even to the degree that when I'm asked, I'm like, exceptional at what? I'm not good at anything.
Right.
Because I've spent so much time highlighting the pain and the dysfunction and the impairment.
Yeah. Well, you want help. I mean, I think there's another thing that I would question
Yeah,
about this
sure,
is like
absolutely.
the more pain I'm in, because this is a notion I had since I was a child, the more pain I'm in, maybe eventually people will respond to that and help me. So this idea of like, it's a desperate cry for help. I mean, in some senses, that's not a terrible phrasing to use, because I do think if you believe and you want to believe that people are good, that they're kind, that they're empathetic, that they don't want others to suffer, that they will help someone in need, that they're helpers, like Mr. Rogers said, if you really, really want to believe that exists, then I do think there's this impulse when you're really, really in pain to show someone. And it's a very smart, it's not a stupid impulse. I feel that way about my migraines for that matter. But to be like,
Yeah.
I'm really suffering. I wouldn't bring this up if I weren't, right? And we can live in that place. And that I think is very dangerous when we don't have groups to get us out of it. We have groups that
Yeah.
are egging us on, and they need to egg us on some level, because a lot of these arguments hinge on people killing themselves. Like, it's serious because people are killing themselves. But if we're not
Yeah.
helping people to not want to kill themselves on like a very basic daily level, then we don't get to champion their lives. We don't get to be their champions. Then that's what I see online. It's just a lot of like, do this or else people will kill themselves. I'm like, wow, like, please. And I say this as somebody who really cares about the suicide rate in autistic women, but I also feel that I have some insights into what got me further from suicidal ideation. And I think that for an autistic person, we have to know that there's hope, and that part of the reason why we don't get help is because our disability is confusing.
Well, and I did want to sort of touch on, you had sort of brought up the concept of like a desperate cry for help. Like, that's not a positive term,
No.
right? That is something that's leveraged against what's viewed as like a needy attention whore type
Attention
person.
seeking. Yeah.
Yeah, it's attention seeking behavior, which is like, we need to sort of reevaluate what we mean when we say attention seeking behavior, because like that matters, that means something. It's not just like, because it's currently used to write people off,
Yeah,
to
exactly.
say this person is disingenuous, they're fake, they're untrustworthy, which sort of on the face of it may be true, right? These qualities that they're dealing with may result in them being untrustworthy or sort of dishonest. But the attention seeking behavior is coming from a place of needing support, of not having their needs met. And yeah, I mean, the language around that just needs to change when we call somebody, when we acknowledge attention seeking behavior or a desperate cry for help, like that it needs to be acknowledged for the words that they are. Why do people seek attention? Because they need help.
Yeah, I'm like, here's the best way that I can think of it too, because Mr. Rogers is so cool, where his mother told him to look for the helpers when he saw scary things happening, which is brilliant. So, all right, if number one you could go to is asking for help bad. Let's skip that one. And you know how I feel about good, bad, but let's go on. So let's ask, are helpers bad? Are people who help bad? If somebody says yes, I'm gonna be like, what we doing now? Like,
well, and I mean, just to like sort of break that question down into a little bit more complexity, how often can you are we aware of the fact that there is this notion that people that go out of their way to be helpful have ulterior motives? And I mean, unfortunately, we do live in a time where that is true some of the times, especially on social media, right? When people sort of do a certain, publicity, filming themselves doing good deeds. Like, Oftentimes there is something a little bit nefarious going on behind that. But that sort of thing, and I'm sure this existed way before social media, that there is this notion that when somebody is going out of their way to be helpful, when helpers are in an area doing helpful things, it's because they have a selfish ulterior motive that isn't supported by the help itself.
And what I need to say to people is that, okay, we need to understand. Okay, Mr. Rogers is so good. So I think it's going to boil down to a couple things: trust and
Mm-hmm.
good feelings. So
Mm-hmm.
it's such a good feeling to know you're alive, right? He would always say and that can give you a very good feeling. He'll talk about certain actions that are very pro-social and ends with, and that can give you a very good feeling. He says this repeatedly. Okay, so if you help someone, you will get a good feeling, and being motivated to get the good feeling is not bad.
Right. Yeah. No, I mean, yeah.
Yeah.
That's how we do anything.
Right. Yeah.
Literally anything. Like it's like
That's system 1
that
and
is
system
why
2
humans
doing.
do the thing.
Yeah.
That's why we do anything, because it gives us a good feeling. If it didn't give us a good feeling, we wouldn't do it.
Yes.
And even, I mean, to that point, that's why the thing we're doing right now exists, because it feels so bad otherwise that we don't do it.
Right. And then now look where we are now. So we have feeling really, 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 really bad is how you know that you're doing something important. What does that say about having a good feeling? It's
Right.
not. It's not important.
Well,
It's not important because we have black and white thinking.
Absolutely I experience in my life, right? When I'm doing things that I enjoy that aren't productive, because those, that's synonymous with feeling bad. Productive things feel bad, so when you're doing a good thing, it's not productive. That I like resent myself for wasting time doing things that feel good.
Right.
And I wanted to say about the helper thing that, like, I feel it's certainly being helpful feels good. I like being helpful. It's a thing that I personally enjoy doing because it makes me feel good. But I also feel like I sort of have this inclination to be helpful because it can remind me that it's a thing that people can do.
Yes, and you too are a people.
Right? Yeah, like if I can be helpful, then so can other people.
Yes.
And I mean, to be even more specific, if I am helpful to people, it will show them that people can be helpful, and maybe they can be too.
Yes, exactly. Exactly. So why isn't this the lesson that we get to pass on as autistic people? Why aren't we being included in that? Because when we feel good, it's inspiration porn. When I say something about daily living skills, I'm already on the defensive about this, seeing what I'm going to be walking into. I'm not doing some guru shit. I read that when I was 6, 7 years old, and then read all that, and I'm good, right? I know what that looks like. I know what that is. I'm not Tony Robbins. I'm not doing any of that. What I'm saying, and I'm trying to be, hell no, like what I'm saying, and I'm trying to be really pinpoint accurate about this, is that to be autistic is to live with a disability. And to live well with a disability is a conversation that we haven't had about autism. And for us to have that conversation, we need to start on a daily basis iterating. Like, I don't know what it looks like. Why should anyone know what it looks like? And if I do know more what it looks like, isn't that going to give us insights about what a good life looks like more generally, because we are an exaggeration of certain things because of our disabilities? So why don't we do that? And I fail to see the flaw in my thinking here. I fail to see why this isn't worth doing, like, as opposed to what I'm seeing happen. I fail to see if someone can come up with a better suggestion. All ears, totally open to this. But at least what I'm saying, as much as people might want to distort it, to feel bad, to say like, Jane's got a false promise too. See, everything's horrible and now I feel horrible, so I'm doing something important. We have to stop that.
This might be a false premise or a null premise, but it occurs to me that this could even potentially lead to the feelings of superiority
Yes.
that a lot of autistic people end up having, right? Because we feel awful all the time because everything is just so difficult for us to interface with. Maybe not, I'm exaggerating a little bit. But it feels like it takes more work for us to not feel bad.
Right.
So there could end up sort of being this connection being reinforced over the course of your adult life, that I feel bad all the time, therefore my life is profound.
Yes. And we're given that. So we get praised potentially when we're talking about horrible things in an eloquent way.
True.
We get praised potentially when we are doing these big meta analyses of like a meta object, instead of the things we're objectively bad at. Like, I'm trying to learn to drive manual, terrible, right? Felt so, I wouldn't even say uncomfortable, but like I had to stop to talk to Kyle about, like, now you can clearly see my impairment, and me knowing that you're seeing it is difficult because I feel stupid. This impairment
Right. And
makes me feel stupid.
Yeah, you have to, like, driving a manual car is very sequential, right?
Exactly.
You have to do things in a very specific order, and if you don't, the car stops moving.
And I have to learn it with drilling muscle memory, and it took me a while to find drills for it. And once I found drills, it's been getting a little bit better, and I'm feeling more confident about it. But we have to learn.
Good.
We can. Thank you. We can learn sequences, but my suggestion is that, or my contribution is that, if we are doing it, it's in a different way. And like, the best thing to do is, if it involves muscles, is to get your motor neurons to learn it instead. And that means drilling this action, this action, this action, this action. That's it. So, but to say, like, watching me trying to do something where that's what I need to rely on is actually the sequential memory, and people are explaining it sequentially. See what I'm saying? Like, that's going to create a lot of confusion, and I'm like, I look so stupid. So why wouldn't I bias towards trying to fix every big giant problem? Because my entire life, adults, all the grown-ups loved that shit, ate that up.
Yeah. Well, and were you learning with Kyle?
Yep.
Yeah. So, and I'm sure that was really helpful because you were learning from a person that understands your situation and can offer you the compassion and the patience for you to learn this in a very specific manner. And right, because when we try to learn that sort of that muscle memory drilling, when we try to iterate our muscle memory to learn sequences that way, it can feel extra bad because the people around us that are trying to teach us are telling us that we're doing it wrong,
and we're upsetting
and that we
them
need to do it another way, and that we're
because they can do the sequencing. That remember, right. I was saying, where they're like, they're getting more focused and more reward, and we're ruining it, literally just ruining it. So not on purpose, but so then I got to have that sort of discussion with Kyle. And again, these theories and ideas and hypotheses don't have to be like actually what they would up to par of a academic standards look like. It doesn't have to be that, right? But I got to have discussions where I'm like, yeah, that might be real. Like, that might be a good way to describe what's happening. And I wouldn't have had that without at least the amount of, like, what's the word? Not framework, but like the foundation that's been set by just making this shit happen on Twitch and meeting everyone. And these are people that are interested and willing to do this because ultimately, like, we can help each other. That's the message that I want autistic people to hear. Like, we can
help one another. And it doesn't have to be big and lofty. What it can be is as simple as like, I would like to feel better doing this. And that's important. I would like to feel better doing this is important.
It is. Yeah. Well, and I can't help but have things like, Gary V pop into my head of just, these sort of big money figures emphasizing how you need to feel like shit to be successful.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, like he that's like literally his like basically his tagline, right? Is that you need to eat shit for 10 years so that you can be successful.
Bad phrasing. You know what he could have said instead? Was that feeling bad is part of the process of learning, and if you're feeling bad, you're training your eye and your judgment of the thing you're doing. But anyways, go ahead.
And I mean, he's not a particularly intelligent or like well-rounded individual,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
He's much like other really rich guys. He's a product of specific circumstance and privilege, and he's also lying, right? He says unbelievably absurd things about his 20s. Like just as a sort of bit, like I've seen a clip of him talking to somebody because you can pay absurd amounts of money to like get a phone call with him or whatever.
Oh wow. Well, that's
yeah. Well, that's how all these gurus function, right? They're like, give me $10,000 and I'll talk to you on the phone for 15 minutes. And like he asks this woman a question of like, what did you do this weekend or whatever, and she talks about not working, so on, and he's like, you spent more downtime this weekend than I did the entirety of my 20s.
Okay.
Yeah, like, all right, dude, shut the fuck up.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Wait. You spent more time on this weekend doing more time than I did in all of my 20s when I was talking with Albert Einstein.
Yeah, exactly. There was something else I was going to say before bringing that up, though.
Sorry, I needed to do the Albert Einstein thing. It just was so there.
No. You're fine. I took myself off track by bringing up the Gary Vee thing. What were you saying?
Well, he was saying about like feeling bad, and I was saying that like, well, the thing I said was like I would like to feel better doing this is important. Is sort of the thing I wanted to say to everyone.
Right.
But especially autistics.
Yeah, there was something I was gonna say like off of that specifically, and it's gone.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's with Einstein and what's his duck?
Yeah, it's in the void with Einstein and Charles Darwin. Oh, I think I was just gonna bring up another anecdote. Now that I think about it.
Oh.
Specifically about driving a manual car.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Tight.
Just like the sequencing thing. Like, I can recall a time when I was driving on the highway, because there's a couple of major highways that run the length of the like Myrtle Beach area. And I was probably 5 or 6 cars back. It was probably my first or second week actually driving my manual car at a red light, and I left it in 3rd gear.
Oh no.
But I just like I didn't have the muscle memory to know exactly how it felt to be trying to start in 3rd gear.
Yeah, yep.
But I knew what it felt like to stall the car, and I didn't have the like sequential memory to know, oh, if this is happening, then I need to check this. And I ended up stalling out on the highway like 3 red lights in a row, like 5 cars back from the line at the intersection. So there's this huge gap in front of me. I'm just like, isolated in the middle of the highway, scared out of my mind, like about to have a meltdown. My friend Anna is in the car with me.
Oh no.
And eventually, like, I just came up with the idea of just like, all right, I'm just gonna brute force it. Like, I'm just gonna slam on the gas as soon as I start to feel the clutch disengage, and the car's gonna go. And it sputtered, but it went. I didn't stall. And then I went to shift into second, and I shifted into fourth, and it all made sense. And that never happened again. Like, I did that thing again where I like accidentally left it in third and not first.
Right.
But I knew immediately, I need to shift into first, because I knew what it felt like. Because I mean, shit, it took me probably 15 tries. So like, I got enough specific sensory data in that one instance to know exactly what it felt like to try and start the car, like start from a stop in third gear.
Right. Yep. That makes.
And we need the opportunities to learn that way.
I was about to say we should have a simulator. They do exist.
Right.
Like, that's how autistics should learn it. But yeah. I know you then have to learn it on your specific car and blah blah blah. But if it was a really good simulator, you could kind of like reproduce some of the way your particular clutch acts.
Yeah, like I would probably not be able to drive your car very well.
Right.
Not just because I haven't driven a car in 2 years, but it would take me a while to get a feel for the clutch and everything.
Yep. So yeah, all of these thoughts that we're working on right now, it's like, this is okay. Gosh, okay. If I ever wanted to get more popular for whatever reason in like the autism people talking about autism, like, I would be a little bit nervous about having to argue with people about my approach, and that's why I kind of just want to literally be so unrecognizably, so indistinguishable from Mr. Rogers that people just like don't.
Yeah.
I'm like, no, just no, please don't do the thing that I'm literally criticizing at me. I will lose it. Like, I'm trying to find, how can I become the person that will not go bananas? Because that's my concern right now, is that there's just so much of that. And I don't have to see it because I don't use the Twitter, so I'm scared. I'm scared about getting involved where that's a dominant attitude, and it's like, fuck.
Yeah, like, I mean, I feel inclined to make another Twitter account for my like personal endeavors, but I have such an immense feeling of disdain for that platform that I don't want to.
Yeah.
Especially since the freelancing platform that I'm trying to use doesn't connect to Instagram.
Yeah.
So like, if I want to connect that platform to a social media that I have, I either need to get back on Facebook, which I really, really don't want to do, or back on Twitter, which I also don't want to do.
Right. Yep. Yeah, I have many a concern about like how to meaningfully connect to other people right now. Or let me start that. That's too vague. That's too wishy-washy language. So what I want to do is have interactions with other people that are doing the thing. Like, like, do things you like with people you like. I have a really like increasingly specific thing I like, and that's going to limit which people I can do stuff with.
Right.
And I'm fine with that, but it also is kind of hard to figure out what to do in terms of like,
well,
I don't know. Go ahead.
Coming back to the thing about academics that we were talking about, like, the internet is not like the primary communications platforms on the internet are not currently set up so that you can do that.
Right.
Right? If you want to sort of, I guess, carefully cultivate the groups of people that you're interacting with in a way that's conducive to your ability to sort of interact seamlessly,
Right.
like that doesn't really exist.
Right. And
You're sort of forced to wade through the chaff every single time you attempt communication in order to, you know, have the sorts of interactions that you want to have.
which would be novel in terms of like how I'm proposing a way of interacting, right? Like I'm not stepping into a place that already does that or is even remotely set up to do it. I'm trying to come in and propose a way of interacting, and what I'm expecting is people like defensively justifying the way that they already are, which is the thing that I find so terrible for the for the for the individual, and I am too an individual. Like I too am an individual, so like it will affect me also. So it's like
Yeah.
it's really difficult to figure out like how are you gonna tell people like boundaries though, guy? And then they'll be like, no, you can't have boundaries because you're a bad person if you set this boundary because this is the noble feeling like shit club and I'm the president. And you're a poo
Yeah.
head. You're a poopy poo head, and I need to tell you this in order to get what I get out of this. I don't
Well,
like
and like
it.
I don't know how this necessarily intersects, and maybe it doesn't in a way that makes sense right now, but it definitely brings to mind, or like it comes as an important, like a crucial aspect of what we're trying to do, that a lot of the criticisms that we're trying to make, or the the things that we're trying to highlight, are associated with groups that are out of their minds.
Yes.
There are a lot of criticisms that I am afraid to even approach in a social setting, in any kind of public setting, because I am aware that it is going to sort of signal to other people that I'm part of a group of wackadoodles.
Yeah.
Um, I had a discussion recently about um, reevaluating how we, like, not even how we, but just completely reevaluating the MPAA,
Mm,
because the things that we allow in PG-13 movies is probably not healthy for children.
I'd agree strongly, to be honest.
And like that sort of thing is so, I guess, like socially and publicly integrated with puritanical ideas,
Yeah.
that trying to approach that discussion from a non-puritanical perspective of, you know,
But
well, I guess
that
it's
says the
funny
person
to
you're
say that it's
talking
like
to is still
it
locked in the puritanical model. This is my issue with it. Is
right,
like I'm like, well,
right.
you're not your imagination isn't free to imagine any other relationship, right? Or how you
Right.
could even come
It's
from this one to
the
a new one.
it's sort of like the contrast of the idea of like the whole save the children thing, right? Like even myself at this point, if I hear anything about save the children, I'm probably going to associate it with some pretty wacky stuff. Um, but so like that sort of taints any idea of like, no, I actually care about childhood development and want
Yeah.
to seriously start looking at how these things that we have set up are contributing to childhood development and maybe the detriment thereof.
Mhm. 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 You'd be asking people to prepare themselves to question not a system so much as like question what they let me start this very carefully, what they are motivated by.
And a lot of times what I see, and this is another trust issue, people will say like, you're not really motivated by what you say you're motivated by, you're motivated by this. I'm like, well, you're saying that because you don't trust this person. Why don't you trust this person? And then I get to ask,
Yeah.
what motivates you to not trust this person? What is this about?
Right. And I think what is so wild to me about this is how deep it can run to the point where people that have known you for so long can develop such a sense of distrust about you based on a handful of statements or a handful of interactions.
Yep.
I obviously won't name any names, but there are a couple of people that very specifically come to mind, or even just one person that was sort of a part of our little group for quite a while, that just completely cast you out as somebody that they really trusted and cared about because of one paper that you were like, hey, I think there's some really good stuff in here. And they completely, like, all sense of trust about your intentions and sort of what you were trying to do with that information vaporized, and suddenly it was about you teaching and indoctrinating people into this very specific idea that was harmful.
And what there's so okay, and what's so interesting about that particular thing is like I don't think that person knew me at all. So that's important. And they also thought that they knew me well enough. And then I have to ask, what motivated you to think that you had it handled and you knew what I was and you knew my value and you knew that I couldn't offer a counter argument to anything that you believe because I am not able to. But why? Gee, you don't know me very well. And somebody is like, okay, you have some issues around something very specific. And that's up for the person to put that together. I can't do that. I'm not getting paid. I'm not a therapist. I'm not a coach. I'm not their mom. I'm not anybody to them. But if you want to hurt yourself continuously, the worst thing you can do is establish some sort of like one man judge, jury, executioner mindset. Because like let me try to put this carefully. Like when you are motivated to find what's bad about not even just individuals, but when you are motivated to find what's bad, you are so easy to manipulate.
Yeah.
And that's not great because guess you're probably going to cast out the same people that have always gotten cast out. At some point you're going to people that want you to do what they say want power, right? So they're going to use the standard ways of acquiring and establishing that power. And there's certain people in society we trust, and there's certain people we don't trust. So eventually you're just going to recreate the same power structures. You're going to be a lackey. And that's sad as shit when people don't want to be. But again, I'm not capable of this level of reasoning because what? Because very, very ingrained reasons. So,
Right.
But that's okay. I mean, I'm okay with it because I also know that it's not personal. It never will be.
Sure.
I will always move through life as a dumb bitch to some people. It's just that's it. That's it. But hey, I mean, people. That's why I didn't get diagnosed with autism in the first place, right? I was just a dumb bitch, dumb pretty bitch.
Yeah.
I'd say it hurts, but I think that's obvious. It hurts.
Yeah. It makes me think of a discussion I was having with support the other night. And like, I don't know, we were sort of doing the generalistic, like neurotypical thing, but we were exploring sort of like a concept that, and maybe it's not like, oh, this is a neurotypical thing so much as it is like, this is how people are sort of taught to build models of people in their lives.
Yeah.
That their model of people is not a sort of how should I say this? It's not a complex map of the things this person does, the things that they say, and the sort of how you can systemically understand what all those things mean when you trust them. Right? When you say that you're a staunch self-taught feminist and that you've read all these books and everything, like when I engage with, like when I conjure my model of you and what I know about feminism, I can, within reason, you know, without allowing myself to take too many assumptions, I can sort of fill in gaps in my model of you as a person based on things that I read about feminism, especially if it comes from an author that I know that you have stake in, and in you building your model of feminism. Right? I don't need you to tell me those things because I trust that you're genuine and that these are things that you put time and energy into. So when I engage that with those things, I can just sort of transpose them into my model of you. And I think what might be really common, this is sort of what we were talking about, is that people model other people as a sort of surface level compilation of the things that they've heard them say and the things that they've seen them do, and that's it. So when they do something that's incongruent with that model because they haven't done the work of filling in the gaps through sort of a trustworthy systemic analysis of the things that they've said and done, and sort of the wide sweeping implications of what all those things mean, which you need trust to do, there's all of this discord and disruption that happens within the relationship or their view of this person, because they don't nothing goes beyond the things they've said and the things that they've done. Your entire model of that person is built on a compilation of just those things. And I wonder if that's sort of what was going on there. They you know, this person, and in many cases it's where we've all experienced something similar, that this person didn't bother to put a certain amount of trust in who you were and to understand the implications of all of the various things that
they automatically put a cap on what I am capable of. And it was so much lower than what I'm actually not only capable of, but doing. So not only do they think I didn't have the potential to do that, there was no way in their imagination that I had even reached the level that I have reached. Like they were treating me as if I was, in my opinion, at the level that I would have been as a 12-year-old. And that's deeply hurtful.
They were acting as though you were so sort of immature in your development. That you couldn't possibly have sort of the nuanced, sort of self-directed analysis and sort of I guess just analysis of the information and assimilating that information into a larger model. That was too complex of a
it was at the level of my knowledge and insights come from comic strips. That's what it was saying to me, which should be insulting, or it means that they hold that standard for certain individuals for some odd reason.
Honestly, more specifically, probably like instead of like a comic strip, a Twitter post.
Well, I'm saying that, like, in my opinion, like, there needed to be like illustrations. Like, this is the sort of level where once
Right,
you're
I got. Well,
yeah,
Twitter
yeah.
posts often have
Okay, well
illustrations.
then
If we
maybe
want to
yeah.
call memes illustrations. Well, and I
Yeah.
say that because that is sort of the modern equivalent of
Hmm.
that like it is this highly distilled mode of communication where if that is sort of your primary engagement with information, you are getting an extremely truncated representation of anything that information could be.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
also yeah, I just this thank you for it's interesting to process this now because it's been years, and I'm going to go back over to Twitch in the mornings only,
Yeah.
on weekdays, and not all of them, but see how that all goes. And I let me start this. I just think I just think that some people don't realize that they think women are dumb. I just think
Yeah.
that's just like that's really it. It's just like it's very convenient to think women are dumb. It's very hard to let go of it. You can say that you let go of it all you want, but a lot of
So,
people's habits
yeah.
speaks otherwise, especially what they consume in media. Like you got to think we're dumb. It's
Well,
okay.
and like I am inclined to believe that some degree of that lack of awareness about that. I mean, certainly there's a lot of different things that can contribute to it. Is that they have a complex, because I don't think it's just troubled, disabled people that develop this complex. I think most people have this complex that everyone around them is stupid.
Hmm.
And I would be inclined to believe that there's some contributing factor there,
Yeah.
right? It's well, because like that's just to sort of draw a parallel to another form of oppression, like that is a really common excuse for racism. I'm not racist. I hate everyone equally,
Right.
right? So I don't think it's unreasonable to say that at least some people are unaware of that specific bias against women
Hmm.
because they do have that complex of just feeling that everyone around them is stupid.
Yeah, but women are stupid in a particularly magical way. I
Yes.
what I want people to know is like when you think people are stupid, you almost invariably are going to think women are stupid in a specific way that's different than men. And even if you don't accept the binary, at some point you're going to default to it. At some point, if the guns are drawn, you're going to shoot for where you think they're vulnerable, and you're going to think that women are stupid and that's their vulnerability. So if you
Well,
really well let me follow my logic.
no. I wasn't
Yeah.
going to
Yeah.
disagree. I was
Yeah,
just
yeah,
going to
yeah.
add on
Yeah, go
that
for it.
like, well, the the like don't buy into the binary or whatever, like that doesn't fix anything on its own.
It really doesn't. But
Um, like you I don't know. I guess I don't want to get too specific about any one issue, but like it does make me think of like this sort of um the word what's the word poopy doodle. I hate when this happens. Um, the disregard for misogyny in trans spaces, as though being a woman, specifically a trans woman, like would sort of disqualify you for any misogynist behaviors,
yeah.
right?
Well,
Like
that's queer
I like we
behaviors are like queer behaviors are somehow potentially put into a pedestal as liberated behaviors when
right.
that's not realistic.
The, no, it's not. I mean,
There's
like
no
it,
real like
and
I'm not saying there is queer behaviors. I'm saying that like you kind of like you're saying I'm in a queer space, therefore our behaviors are liberated here. So now we're starting to
right,
see
and I
yeah, which may not be
yes,
the case.
and I see this all over the place where there's and as a queer person, I understand the the feeling of safety in queer spaces,
Hmm.
right? But it should be more or less specifically laid upon queer oppression, right? If I'm in a place where most of the people are LGBTQ plus, I can be confident that as a gender um, like non-conforming, a bisexual person, I am safe to talk about those things and how they impact my life if
Yes.
I want to.
Right.
And I don't have to worry about any consequences or repercussions from people that think that's abhorrent.
Mm-hmm.
But like the other forms of oppression are not just like, that's not how that works. You don't, and I mean, obviously, this is a huge problem across many spectrums, that like being oppressed in one way makes you understand oppression in all
Well,
ways,
and
and
that
you're sort of personally liberated from the implications that like, and it's just
all
not how it works. It's not how developmental like conditioning works.
no, and like, and even just to speak of it as like, okay, let's try to isolate it to like how we're going to approach sociology. This is my opinion. If you're going to approach sociology, you know that you're talking about a bunch of theories that disagree with each other in the exact same area, coming from the exact same goals, right? So you have people that they're on the same quote unquote team or side, which is why maybe dualism isn't a good thing to anchor your thoughts to. But anyways, but you'll have people that are on the same team or side who completely disagree with each other because their whole model is built on different premises. All of their arguments have a different like uh, primary premise, first principle, however you want to like chop that up. But like basically the thing that it all hinges on is different and actually contradicts each other. Both can't be true. So you're going to have that, and there's no one theory of any social phenomenon. That's not how that works, and usually they disagree with each other in some way.
Right.
So if you're going to have everybody doing it all together, that's really 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 hard and just a fun crazy kooky idea. If you're also impaired and your life is shit, maybe that doesn't make as much sense as you think it does, to spend your time doing that overwhelmingly impossible task of speaking past people who don't even have degrees in this shit. Like, why?
Well,
as an
and
enthusiast,
also to bring
why?
this back to the feeling bad thing, I am inclined to believe that there's some of that going on.
Yeah.
That like, oh, I've been oppressed in this way, and it's felt bad for so long, and because I feel bad, that means I'm doing important things.
Right.
And it's just, I don't know. That's people are there are a significant number of people that are making inaccurate connections between what they think is important and how they're categorizing it that way.
Yeah.
Which is like,
Oh, and we're back
which is
to we're
weird
full
because like
circle.
I don't do I don't know how to prioritize things in terms of importance.
That's right.
I can do it, but I don't really do it. Like my brain just like picks the thing that's most important for me to focus on.
I think
And I
we're
like,
using a
go
workaround
ahead.
though. So I feel I'm going to interrupt because like it's not a pizza thread, but you know what I mean. I need to get something in there. So
No, please.
you can feel pain, right?
Yeah.
Pain is the most important thing for you to deal with if it's severe enough, right? So
Yes.
couldn't you be creating again like a what's the word I'm looking for? Like a shit. There was an S word that I had earlier that I used for this. An analogous sense, like a that other you see in other people when something is important. You're creating you. It feels important to be in a crap ton of pain. It can help you to feel that something is important. I think autistic people learn to use that even in a masking way potentially, which is concerning. But also it's like if you can't prioritize and you can't tell what's what, um, and you want to feel like you can, then you might just put yourself in the most pain possible because now it feels meaningful and important and you have some semblance of it. And the thing that I'm saying is like what's actually happening is we're just labeling most of the time. We're saying like this is over there, that's what that is, that looks like this, that looks like that, individually, one thing at a time. And you're if you're autistic, you're ignoring everything for that pain signal. everything, because how are you supposed to prioritize it? It's not good. No. Like, you have to work with things as they are. And if it's so big, you can never ever label it. And you're constantly being thrown off guard by manipulative people who are trying to show you where the bad guy is, because then the pain will stop. Like, it's so obvious how this turns into manipulation if this model is accurate, right? And then the solution is just to say, you don't have to say like, hey, that pain is wrong or bad. No, your brain, like, this is what Andrew Vogel says, like, your brain is absolutely trying to help you out. It's like, oh, you don't want to be hurt any worse or anything to hurt ever again. You want pain to stop. It's like, thank you, agreed, brain.
I mean,
That's
that's
true.
like almost the entire premise of like ideations, right? Your
Right.
brain is like, all right, well, I'm out of solutions, so let's just make it stop.
Yeah. So then my thinking is that our strength is in, as autistics in my model, our strength in it is in being able to take a local thing, a specific thing, and look at all the features of it, and we will be happy working from there, and we will be productive working from there, and we will be able to extract that from administrative tasks that are mostly sequences and demands prioritization. We can leave the other stuff and focus on what feels good. Like, imagine navigating by noticing that you're understanding it, that you're making something more meaningful because you understand it, not because it
Right.
feels so bad.
Well, and as we've highlighted many times before, like feeling or learning, not a super great feeling all the time.
Mm-hmm.
The harder it is to learn something, the worse it feels.
Yeah.
It requires a lot of metabolic resources to learn very complex things. And so like that can even further reinforce what we're talking about.
Right. Exactly.
That like, oh, I feel bad, I'm doing the thing.
Mm-hmm. 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 Mm-hmm.
And like it just doesn't have to be like that all the time.
And then what I'm saying to people is, like, you're trying to actually approximate the experience of a neurotypical person because you want to get things done, because you want to live
Yeah.
at their level of functioning, right? That's why you're trying to approximate what it seems to be, which seems to be like, oh, okay, something's really, really, really important to them. And not only does it seem to be, they'll tell you to do what's most important. Like, all the advice will kind of tell you to have something that's disabled in you work. Okay, so then what is the closest thing that you know to feeling that something is meaningful? Potentially it's this pain thing. And I'm saying, no, you do have a way of making meaning. You do have a way of increasing meaning. And for an autistic person, it's very dedicated, and it's going to be that semantic and episodic, but it's going to be declarative memory. It's going to be looking at specific things and then learning about all the meaning. And that's not just only ultimately useful, which is nice, but even if you don't care about that, like, you can be happy, like, because
Yeah. Which is like a good thing to want.
yeah. And again, you can get people really stuck, and maybe it's a bad thing to want because pain means something's important, and now I can experience importance, and that's how people are experiencing good lives, because they keep telling me that's how they're doing it, and clearly they kind of are doing it that way. Therefore, I think it's like a misunderstanding that comes out of a need to be able to live up to what people say is necessary to have the quality of life that we don't.
Right.
So then if somebody comes at me, like, this is actually all talking about the same damn shit that we were talking about a couple minutes ago when I was processing something hurtful that, or not even hurtful, something that felt like shit and I felt sad about and upset and hurt and misunderstood and blah 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 blah, and lots of bad feelings. So that whole thing that occurred in my mind is a byproduct of what we're describing, and I only in some ways feel more motivated to go forward. I worry about my heart being broken by trying to tell people something that may be actually significant, actually meaningful, and them rejecting it because they would rather
They would rather I feel bad. They think that meaning is feeling bad. So they're going to make
Right.
me feel bad so I really understand what matters in life. And I can't imagine autistics doing that to each other, but I think it's happening. And I'm like, God, this is a nightmare. And it's heartbreaking. It's just if I could get this through to people, if I could get people to see my reasoning, and I'm open to them poking holes in it, but if it doesn't, if they try to poke holes in it, it's resilient and we're good, and this could even be improved upon something better than what I just said, and then I can argue successfully that
Well, and I want to interject real quick.
yeah,
Poking holes in it for the sake of understanding it better.
yes,
Not poking holes in it because like that's the thing to do,
right,
right? Like I mean this is like the whole like one of the biggest things that we're dealing with right now is like this I don't know, I say one of the whole things we're dealing with, but it's like never talked about that like there seems to be somewhere along the line that the concept between constructive criticism and destructive criticism just like evaporated, and now all criticism is considered destructive.
yeah.
And I don't like that because I I need feedback and like I need people to be able to critically look at the things I'm doing in my life and tell me where they think I could improve. That it's absolutely crucial to everything I want to do in my life to receive that kind of feedback. And if every time I ask for feedback, it's this like this mean-spirited, like destructive sort of approach to criticism, like I'm going to fail dramatically.
Also, I need to have a day in my life where I don't. Okay, this is what's heartbreaking about it from my perspective. And this is like a really specific incident, but I think 9 out of 10 times this is going to play a factor. It's this idea of like me being seen as as included in the treehouse and not on a I'm not on a honorary membership, like actually being included because I earned it, right? Because the way you, let me just say it, like the way I've been treated and seen other women be treated is we'll include you because we find you sexually attractive, and we've got a really elaborate narrative in our heads that we have cast you in some role in. I have a shirt that says only respecting women you're attracted to isn't respecting women. And at the end of the day, I'm like, you never respected me. You just thought I was attractive.
And I want to reprise your statement a little bit. And obviously this is sort of flexible depending on the sort of specific environment we're talking about, but not that you deserve or that you have a spot in the treehouse not because you earned it, but just because you deserve to be there by existing.
Yeah, imagine that.
Right? Like, there is flexibility to that. Like there are spaces where maybe you don't need to be there. You don't have an inherent like you don't inherently deserve to be in all spaces all the time. But if we're at the very least keeping with the sort of casual sort of rhetoric of a treehouse, you just deserve to be there. You don't need to earn your spot.
Yeah.
You're a human being and you deserve to be in the company of other human beings. Full stop. End of sentence. Period.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Thanks for saying that too, because I got to think about that, because that's like, and you know, I also have
my version of the baggage of autistic person is dumb at social thing, autistic person is frustrating us, autistic person doesn't understand any of this, and therefore things are shit, and my brain is still doing the, hey Jane, you don't want to feel like shit, right? What if you hid in your room forever? And I'm like, the siren song. It calls to me. Fuck.
That was heavy Teen Girl Squad energy right there.
Thank you. Okay. All right. It's 3:30, so I think I'm gonna call it. I got a lot done. How was your stuff?
I did okay.
Okay.
I took a break for probably about a half hour or so.
That's fine.
I recently sold all of my most valuable magic cards.
Oh.
Yeah, it's something I've been putting off for a long time, so I finally decided to sell them to like a big card vendor.
That's nice.
But I like went through the process of pulling everything apart and like getting everything together like 2 weeks ago, and then just never put the boxes away. Because when it comes down to selling all of your most valuable cards, your collection of like 5,000 pieces of cardboard.
Yeah.
The only really valuable bits is like a little over 100. So like I still had all these boxes of cards to put away, and I just sort of left them sitting in the middle of my floor for the last 2 weeks. So I pulled out all the totes that I have in my closet to put them away. And then I was like, what if I just completely reorganized my closet? Which was not my plan for the day. So there's a lot of things I wanted that I had my eye on to do today that I didn't do because I did that instead.
But that actually sounds really good. And I mean, most of this is like kind of wing it as much as you need to.
Absolutely.
Because who knows?
There were a bunch of things I was able to put away in my closet specifically because I just organized it.
Nice.
Yeah. So the last thing I'm doing right now is breaking down the like 7 pizza boxes I had sitting on my side table.
Yeah. Oh man, did I even break down the one that I had? I think I might have before Kyle got here, just to look civilized. I did it. Yep.
Because I was like, I guess I'm eating cheese again. That means I can eat pizza whenever I want.
Yep.
So
that follows. Yeah. What
so
other thought are you supposed to have?
Yeah, so that was kind of the final thing that I was like, no, I don't want to finish today without getting that done.
Hell yeah. Nice job.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I'm going to pop off. I'm going to take Merlin out. I'm going to see where Kyle is on his adventure home. He drove, so
long drives.
Yeah. But if we were talking like the whole time, the only reason I wanted, I was like, when we do HCAT, I don't know if he got to turn into the whole thing, and then I'm going to go see where he's at and just probably talk to him the whole ride. This was great. Thank you so much. And tomorrow,
I super missed this.
Yeah, I don't anticipate having a big gap again for a while, but got to get it going.
COVID is a big thing. So
and then we're doing tomorrow, Monday, Wednesday, Friday is the Twitch, but it's the 8 to 9:30. I may modify the time. I don't know yet, but I know it's going to start at 8. So yeah.
Cool.
Okay. All right. Well, thanks. Thanks for being here, Rowan.
Yeah, thanks for hosting, Jane.
You're welcome. Thanks for anybody who listens to this. If you don't understand it, that kind of makes sense, actually. Yeah, you don't have to. You could just never get it. That's cool. All right. Bye.
Bye.
I'm going to disconnect. Bye.
Okay, bye.